That's how big it is.
That's how big it is. They don't even use it. Like the number one thing, they don't even use it against them.
How odd that even CNN, like, 'cause that would be the death shot. That should be we're wiping them out. We're clearing the way for Biden or Harris. Easy would be here. And then,
Fucked up world, bro. It gets dark and it gets scary when you think about these circles. And like, we separate them now with like us and the elites and everything. And yeah, like that's fair. But also I wonder how much of it is just like manufactured by us versus then the things that are real, where some of these people at the very least are doing things that are just beyond.
that's a side of the world that you almost don't want to spend much time looking into it. Because you can...
What's up, guys? If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button on the video. And if you don't have time to watch this episode right now, I'd really appreciate it if you saved it to your watch later playlist on YouTube. Finally, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or X, those links are in my description below.
Full house tonight, boys. Got Tommy G, got the whole Tommy G team. Miguel, Keegan, welcome, boys.
Appreciate it.
Howdy, partner.
What are we doing in town this time?
Methadone Mile. So we start off in Boston. We hit Methadone Mile. We hit into the hoods of Boston. So we had this really fresh white boy named Millie's take us to a few different spots. But we talked to everyone from a Harvard professor to a guy, I don't know if I can say this early on in the episode, but a guy cooking. And Miguel, all of us were in like this. We were getting a little scared. So we just kept like this the whole time.
Play a little Fetty Wap in the background.
We were doing it.
That's it. What's it like to cook? What does that look like?
He kind of just, what was it, he just threw fucking baking soda into a little pitcher, and then he got a pot, heated it up.
If you listen to a few Young Jeezy songs, you know how to make it. Okay. You get the Pyrex on the pot, you whip it up. It makes it sound like it's such like a cool, like, I'm whipping up the pot, and then you really are like, oh, I'm cooking up. So that we were in some old guy's apartment. He was using one of his customers' houses, and there was some old guy that was just on the couch smoking, and you're just like, this is a bit unusual.
How do you source one like that?
I put it on my story looking for a house ASAP, gloves, ski mask, sunglasses, sleeves, and then within about 15 minutes we had like 10 leads.
You had 10 leads.
Yeah.
How many cities?
I specified for Boston and Lawrence, so we had a fine tooth comb. And then you got to figure out from their picture, like when it's like finesse flexor 207, and like their pictures all like them flexing cash. You're like, yeah, that's probably a good bet. You know, so you start to like, you can pick up the profile, like even the like profile description is like long live Trey. You're like, oh yeah, that might have been it too. You know.
What's the like when you go into something like that though? We talked about this last time when you made videos like the most dangerous hood and like that. But like, are you ever afraid, even at this point? Like, oh, I may be going in somewhere where bullets may start flying.
Something we were talking about in the car ride home yesterday is we've gotten desensitized. But it's kind of like this: if me and you go outside and see a gunshot victim, we're like, oh my gosh, there's a gunshot. It's a gaping chest wound. Like, but if an emergency room doctor sees it, it's like, yep, okay, get the gauze, get the gloves, we're gone. So it's kind of like that. We've done enough of these operations that we're not nearly as scared as we should be. But like the reason we were talking about it is the dealer, we asked him, you know, have you ever unalived a customer? And he's like, yeah, I went to this lady's house and she just kept buying. I kept serving. Like she kept buying. And then I knew she was on her last dose. So I gave it to her. And then I just walked out and she, you know, unalived later that day.
Oh my God.
And I'm just like that should have been like a stop and me like, what did you just say? But we're just like, oh yeah, next question. Like it wasn't like
yeah.
I
mean, you're talking to people that have a whole different understanding of reality than you do. And yet you're in here doing these stories all the time. So like you get where they're coming from, but there's a disconnect there because it's like you're there to document, but you would never I would imagine you could never imagine yourself being in the middle of that.
It's interesting figuring out their reasons because they're always pretty well rationalized. They always have like, you know, well, when you come from the bottom like me, this is what you got to do. And so it's just business. They've seen it. Their uncles were doing it. Their brothers were doing it, yada, yada. So it's not really, I haven't met one guy that's like, I know this is a crazy business. I know it's kind of bad. It's all like all guys that want to hustle to the point where they can go legal. Hey, I need enough money so I can buy a truck and start a trucking company, or I'm launching this or I'm launching that. They all have kind of a dream of going legal, but first they got to hustle a little bit to get there.
And then they get stuck in that loop.
They get
and
stuck
then
in
they
the
never
loop.
want to get rid of it.
Or they go to
because-
prison before they make the money. But the thing is, what are you going to do? Get a duffel bag full of $100K in your apartment and just hope that no one steals it, hope that it's going to... So then, yeah, there's this dream, and they kind of think this is my only way to really get out of it. And then that inevitably puts shackles on their life. And... But he was like, I don't know. It was like you think like this is an evil person, this is a bad person. Then you talk to him, and it's like
They seem evil in the moment, and then after he's like, "Hey, Tommy, can I get a picture? I'm a huge fan."
Right.
Like he's super chill, normal kid.
Yeah, like when I had Brian McMonagle in here, Bill Cosby's lawyer, Meek Mill's lawyer, really high-powered defense attorney. He talks about that because he represents a lot of guys who, you know, he won't say it, but objectively, they murdered motherfuckers and shit. Like, these are bad people. But he'll talk about these little moments of humanity that he'll see from them that makes it, like, worth it to defend them. And I don't know, the way he puts it is similar because it's almost like they can... There's these moments or these places that they can be. Maybe in this case, it takes being around a documentary film team for them to like step outside of their reality for a minute and be a normal person. But then the minute that you leave or you're not there, or the minute like Brian McMonagle's not in the room with them, they're back to whatever it is. That's really like a sad cycle to me to see that happen.
I think a lot of these guys are good if you took them to a different environment with different opportunities, different education. But they say product of your environment, and it's so true. But the thing is, I don't see the way out of it. What do you guys think?
It's just a cycle. I don't think it'll end. I mean, I don't think it'll ever end.
Yeah, it's tough to say because I feel like a lot of times when you talk to him, like, yeah, you do see the humanity in him. You're like, yeah, like, hey, if you just grew up in a different environment, you know, you'd probably be running a business or working at a bank, but instead you're
At the same, you want to have like you know how much personal responsibility matters, so you don't want to let them off the hook, and like it's kind of just like how are none of the guys in your crew being like, yo, this is a little bit like you just serve that person until they die, dude? Like what are you doing? There's no one there to check them because it's like, well, I'm in the same rat race you are. Oh, you
Yes.
made 3 bands? Nice, dude.
It's like they've been around that their whole life. I mean, like Miguel, because you came on board, what, a couple years ago, filming everything for Tommy? What had you filmed anything like the stories that Tommy's doing before you worked with him?
Before Tom, I would film a lot of like rap music videos.
Okay.
And maybe you're familiar with Washington Heights here.
Of course.
So I'd film there. And any other chances around here you would be familiar with now. But yeah, like I'd go down there at 11 o'clock at night by myself with someone else to help me with like a tripod. And then, so when I came with, I mean, Keegan was already filming at the time too. So when I came with these two guys and like he's jacked, he knows how to fight.
Right.
Nobody's going to Tommy G, you know what I mean? So I was more safe when I was showing up with 2 other people.
Yeah,
So-
wearing a bulletproof vest with a big press thing on it. You'll be all right. And what about you, Keegan?
No, I didn't even film really much prior to working with Tom. I had just left my job to go full time into real estate, and just had the, free time to film, and it was a culture shock because I was going from just a, super suburban upbringing, and just a pretty normal corporate world to filming the wildest things on
Houses.
yeah house.
How do
There you
your
go.
parents feel about some of these subject matters?
Not a fan. No, my mom's occasionally a bit frightened of where we're going.
Yeah.
Keegan, so we sent him on one of his first solo missions. He stayed with these guys, the Black Israelites, in Harlem.
Oh, that was you doing
Yeah,
that.
that was me.
You
So-
were sorry, I was out of
No,
town. You're supposed to hang here.
It's all
Yes.
good.
Anytime you guys like need a crash here, like that was like it was my best friend getting
Of
married.
course.
Anytime you guys, we got space.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
So we send him into the mix, and on paper it's like it's this group that hates white people, and you're sending Keegan. My wife was like, "What are you doing? You're sending him alone there?" And he didn't even tell his mom where he's going.
Yeah.
What were they like? And can you tell people who they are?
Yeah,
more than what Tommy just said.
So the Black Israelites, they're, you know, you look them up. The first thing it's going to pop up, it's like SPLC, ADL. It's like hate group.
Right.
And so
Predictable.
You know, yeah, pretty predictable. And so, you know, he's like, you know, I'm, you know, pretty white, and so I'm going into it like, yeah, if you couldn't tell from the camera, and I'm like, you know, it's a hate group, but you know, I'm also going there with a camera, and you know, maybe I'm just a fool for thinking that, you know, the cameraman never dies, but.
Well, did they treat you well, like, because you're there documenting? Like, it's almost like you're different. You're not just some random white guy on the street. They're like, oh, it's like they give you give you the token pass for the day. No?
Yeah, no, I was the token white guy.
They like Keegan a lot. So when we showed up, there's no parking in New York, obviously. So they're in a park. They're in this giant circle, all wearing black boots, like leather cuffs, like 80s action figures, and they're doing push-ups. Their first day of Hebrew camp. And
Hebrew camp.
Yes. And we couldn't find a parking spot. So it's like, okay, Keegan, he parked. Me and Miguel go there, like, where's Keegan? And like they really wanted to see Keegan. And they actually felt pretty comfortable, like, oh, Keegan's over there. Okay, good. And I just feel like all the people we could have sent to, like, a guy named Keegan is probably one of the whitest people you can send. And they really liked this because also they weren't afraid to laugh, especially Captain Tazariak was our main guy that we were talking to.
Captain Tazariak.
Yeah, Captain
Sounds like
T-
a real straight shooter.
Yeah, Captain T. It was so fun because, like, so I'm like, okay, let's get to the chase here. Like, you guys want to enslave white people? He's like, yeah, you kind of deserve it. And so I was calling him massa and doing push-ups and stuff. And I'm like, what kind of slave activities would you have me do? Like, am I going to be a house honky or a field honky? And they were still thinking of the chores I'd be responsible for, but they promised to be a nice massa.
You were calling him massa.
I was doing push-ups like, hey, massa, can I go get a water break? Just to show how ridiculous their thinking is, you know? And it was almost like you'd ask them certain things and be like, okay, but you really think, so Black Jesus is going to come back and everyone's going to be enslaved, from whites, Chinese, Japanese, but Latinos are in their group. Native Americans
You're
are in
all
there.
right.
Yeah.
I'm
So
all good.
Yeah.
Miguel is the only guy that can officially join them.
Miguel's gonna whip us one day.
Yeah.
So that's the sole goal. They want to enslave population.
They've got a couple other goals.
What are the other goals,
So
Mr. Reporter?
they're looking to, you know, just rule the world, and you know, they said that when they rule the world, that everything's just going to be peaches and cream.
What is their stake to being? Obviously, they call themselves Israelites, so I assume, because I don't know much about them, I assume that has something to do with the Holy Land over there, like everything else seems to have to do with that. Do they think that they are the direct descendants of that land?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple passages that they'll read where it's like, you know, they're talking about Revelations, and it's like, you know, he had feet of bronze. His feet were like bronze. His hair was like white wool. Or
Get like 2 or 3 inches from the mic.
okay,
Yeah.
is that better?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
awesome.
Or they'll like be reading like the Song of Solomon, where it's like, you know, it's one of his wives or one of his girlfriends who is, when you read the literature, like it's her and she's black, and it's like, okay, this is obviously, you know, an interracial relationship, but they just misquote it, and they're like, the quote is "I am black," and they're like, yep, Solomon was black.
They have a few different Bible verses that they love to take generous interpretations with that end in them enslaving us. I'm assuming.
Oh, it ends with them actually enslaving us.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna be feeding Captain T grapes after Black Jesus comes back.
Right. Okay. Yeah. See, it kind of blows my mind. There's a couple things here. It blows my mind. Number one, that we can take things that are supposed to be sacred to humanity and turn it towards just very specific parts of humanity, literally separating people by race, and then try to use that, which is like a form of holiness, in air quotes there, as power. That kind of blows my mind. Number two, it's like, how many times are we going to talk about the translations of any ancient text, to say nothing of the Bible? You can look at the English translation of, like, I don't know, whatever, there's all different names of Bibles. I'll butcher it. But like, you can look at the English translation of like one verse in the Bible and see that there's 40 different interpretations of it, where if one word is here versus there, it completely changes the entire meaning of a sentence. So you have people who are hanging on to, in this case and in any case really, not just them, like this interpretation of this verse that could totally be wrong, hypothetically.
Did you go to church as a kid?
I did. Yeah, I grew up Catholic.
So, they have, and that's why you get all these different interpretations. That's why you have the Lutherans, the Evangelicals, the Baptists, and all of them will tell you like they're the ones that interpret the Bible correctly.
Right.
And it's funny how they'll take very obscure lines, like there's certain churches that don't have women pastors because they look at one line for it, or they're really focused on homosexuality because there's maybe one line in the Bible, and then. But the most important thing that's mentioned frequently in the Bible is loving your neighbor.
That's right.
And the love of Jesus. But it's like, no, skip that part and let's enslave someone, you know? I mean, even the Ku Klux Klan, so I told these guys, I'm like, you are not that much different from the Ku Klux Klan. You're using the Bible in messed up ways to try and do some sort of perverted agenda. And, but they believe it. And you almost like can't be sure that they believe it because it's so ridiculous that you're like, okay, you guys can laugh now. Like you guys can kind of like give up the joke, and they're like, they're so dead serious about it that you want to laugh in their face.
Did you get a chance to ask a lot of these guys about like their upbringing or their childhood or things that push them towards getting to this belief?
That was the one thing that I like. You know, obviously shooting's done with this one, but I wish we had asked more of that because it's like, you know, like. Why are you latching on to something where, you know, you just have like hate for 70% of the world? Like, like what makes you tick? Like what caused you to just dislike white people, dislike Asians? Like why are you the way you are? And I feel like it's probably upbringing with a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at it like people get pushed to where they are. It's not to say you then excuse what people do, but you know, whenever I look at really sad situations where someone became like objectively evil or something like that, my first thought is, okay, how can we, and this is, just bear with me here, like how can we empathize with how they got to that point? Not empathize with who they are or what they do, but how they got to that point so that we can figure out that one less of them or a couple less of them exists in the next generation. And statistically, you know, we have more access to news now than ever before around the world, so we constantly see everything that's wrong. But statistically, if you look at guys like Steven Pinker, like across different ways to measure society, we are living in the best society ever. We do continually make progress. Sometimes, like, we'll take a little step back for a year or two, but overall, like, you'll see murder rates go down, or, you know, overall crime go down, or sustenance go up, and stuff like that. So I try to keep that in mind, but it also always blows my mind that in a world where we have access to so many people and so many different perspectives, we have found a way to still get into our, sometimes, in this case, like extreme tribes.
What is it about humans that we always think the sky is falling? You were saying with Steven Pinker that it's demonstrably getting better. We have a little bit of a dip, but right now I think a lot of Americans feel like things are getting out of control. We're on the decline. It's a fall of empire. Our era is over. Is the sky really falling? But I feel like humans are just always conditioned to be like, well, it's been a great run and it's about to go down from here. Is that an evolutionary instinct of, hey, we need to survive, we're scared, we have to always find the next way? Or why are we so latched on to things are going to shit?
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, evolutionarily, like, we didn't live, like, we lived because we found the bad things and ran away from them. Like,
Yes.
We're just programmed to look for the negative. I mean, you get cut off in traffic and it ruins your day, even if the day was fantastic. So I think just like looking for the things that are going to kill you or, you know, make the sky fall is what we're just programmed to look for.
Negative things are so much more strong for some reason. You get 100 nice comments, one mean one, and you're like, oh gosh, like,
Yep.
I feel like a pile of trash. And do you think that's a good evolutionary adaptation, or is that just a curse of being a human?
I think it's more the latter. I think it's more a curse of being a human, unfortunately, because we adapt it to what our environment lets us take in as an impetus. So, in English, 6,000 years ago, we were running from the bear who was coming to get us right when we walked out of our cave, and we hope we lived that day. Like, that was our worry, the bear. Now we're running from what someone may say on social media that may f with our worldview, or disagree with it, or be something mean about us if it's directed our way. So, you know, we are more trained to see that, and we're also living in a world that incentivizes that. If I go on YouTube, and I put out the title, Analyst Issues Stark Warning About Potential World War III. And I double test that with Analyst Says Things Are Looking Good for Geopolitics 2 years from now. Which one do you think is getting clicks?
Definitely the former.
Right? So, and I think about this a lot because I've tried to really, at least on my end, tone down titles a ton over the past year. And sometimes it doesn't work. And then, like, I'll call Danny Jones and he'll make a title like, oh, Jesus Christ is using children as drugs, and it gets a 12% click through. And my income is based on motherfuckers clicking shit. I mean, you guys understand this is the world you live in too. And yet I wonder what that's doing to us, because that incentive loop is affecting creation down to consumption in a 360 manner at all times.
It would be nice to cover more stories about the guy that volunteers at the homeless shelter, or he visits his grandma every Saturday at the nursing home and makes her banana bread with chocolate chips in it, and they have a great time. But there is something about, you want to see into the dark side of humanity. That's why even with women, it's so popular to have those murder podcasts, because for some reason, even though it's so horrible and so disgusting and degenerate, you can't help but be captivated by the dark side of our shadow that lurks within every single one of us. And I think the cool thing about what we get to do is we get to have these crazy titles, but every one of them is a real thing that we're exploring. And it's a weird journey of desensitization. Like, we can just be on methadone mile, and there's a guy xylazine scratching, and he shakes, and then afterwards you shake his hand, and it's like, oh, well, you know, I need some hand sanitizer right away, but I'm still shaking his hand because he's a human, you know. But I think it makes this job endlessly fascinating, and then we're never going to run out of stories, because that captivation of the dark side will always be there. But we do want to definitely have a push of more positive episodes as well. We just did one with a billionaire who is
Tarek?
Yes. And a real estate billionaire, I should say, for PR purposes, and very good man. And also, like, the focus of being inner wealth is way more important than any material thing. So we definitely want to.
What do you mean? What does he mean by that?
He means you could be the guy that have the jets, the mansions, homes in all these different locations, but you will never truly be happy if you're not working on your inner self. So focus on family, focus on exercise, focus on building that community, that brotherhood, that meaning, that purpose. And so he's wrote a book about it, and we want to cover more guys like that. I want to be able to go to Mark Cuban and be like, I love what you're doing with the pharmaceutical world. We want to highlight that. So I don't always give people like, this place is scary, it's dangerous.
Right.
But I do want to keep it legit. Like, I don't think there's a lot of clickbait out there. I don't think someone can go through one of our pieces and be like, well, you did, inside a trap house? Well, it is a trap house, or it's the most dangerous part of South Dakota. Like, we looked it up. It is,
Yeah. Do you think that in some of your videos where you're exploring the dark side, like I'm thinking of the first one that popped off, the Kia Boys. Mm-hmm. We talked. What's the kid's name again?
Mr. E-Brake.
Yeah, Mr. E-Brake.
Shout out Mr. E-Brake.
We talked about him a lot the last time you were here in episode 197. It's like he obviously there's some disconnect there where when you leave him, you realize you can't be his dad or his older brother. He's got to make his own decisions, but like he's not making the right decisions, and you do try to keep up with him, but he's still not doing that, which is not exactly a happy ending to that story. But do you see in some of these videos that some of the people you come across, there is like a silver lining at the end, or a potential light at the end of the tunnel?
That's the really cool thing. I think despite us diving into the dark side, there's always a redeemable character that we meet that you're cheering for in a weird way, like the car thief. Mm-hmm. He's a prolific car thief, but he's so smart, and he has this rationalization that he does it because he wants to support his daughter, and he also has a lot of people that rely on him. So, while we're with him, people are texting him like, hey, I need $1,200, rent's due, and it's like, okay, I'm going on a mission tonight. And so you see that even though it's like, if he stole your car, you'd be like, you'd want to strangle this guy, but you see it from the other point of view where it's like
Robin Hood.
Yeah, you see the humanity in all these people, and we all have to tell ourselves a story so that we do what we do. Like our guy King Tuck down in Tucson that runs the sketchiest motel of the certain type of trade. But within this guy, it's like you send him the copy of the video, and he's like, "Oh man, that was so cool!" Like they're just dudes at the end of the day.
Right. Now, when you were here in March, you filmed what ended up becoming like the biggest video I think you've ever done, the most wanted drivers in New York. and I had a chance to come out and see some of that and talk with some of these guys too. But since then, we've seen one of the drivers who was his own thing, not associated with swim team directly, but we've seen Squeeze Benz.
He went down.
He went down.
Yeah.
Now, I told you at that dinner, 90 days. I told you. I'm like, because the other guy, you could tell, first of all, he was young.
Reckless as hell.
Reckless as fuck, bro.
And let's just say what he got booked for had nothing even to do with,
Yeah, how did he go down again?
or I shouldn't have said, it had nothing to do with.
He would never do that.
Bleep out what I said. Please bleep it out. But it didn't have to do with that either. I mean, this guy had his hands in things that had nothing to do with driving. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And please do bleep out what I said.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just making a note of that. But like you see stuff like that, and
There's a Freudian slip of the worst degree.
having a chance to talk with someone like that, though, like one of the questions I asked him, and by the way, the documentary you guys did was actually amazing. Not just the views on it, but
How long did you turn that around in? Like you guys were hustling your absolute cojones.
Because in the middle of editing that, Where's 981 is like, oh, can you blur out or put a little bar here on me and my 5 guys?
Initially, they were all good to go, and all of a sudden, he's got to do a moving blur.
Yeah, so it took us. I mean, we were both going at it like 15-hour days. Me and this other editor, Jack.
Shout out
Juiced Up
Jack,
Films,
by the way.
Juiced Up Films.
Juiced up, baby.
can we pull up that video, Alessi, by the way, while we're talking?
Yeah, so that's another thing with these videos is sometimes a lot of these guys when we pull up, they're like, oh, we're good. You don't need to blur us. And then like halfway through editing it, they're like, wait, can you actually blur everybody?
Yeah.
Or we just put this one out in South Dakota, and at the end of the video, we visit a little trap house, nothing major. I mean, it's just like a little. The guys are selling weed. It's not a big deal. But we put it out, and all of a sudden, oh man, I got raided 2 months ago, and I was wearing that same sweatshirt that you interviewed me. That you gotta delete that, and just like, dude. So obviously we do because the streets love us, and we're gonna honor that. But it is frustrating, like because when we go there, it's like you're gonna wear. We tell them exactly what to wear. You should wear sleeves, gloves, mask, ski, all that. And then all we got to do is change your voice, and we're in the clear. And they're like, no. Now we don't even allow them to say no. We make them do it because on the back end, Miguel's gonna be punching himself if.
Which, by the way, we have to talk to because we're having Where's 981 in here next week.
Good guy. Really, really smart, really clever.
Yeah, he was at that thing, but I had a chance to talk with him. Thanks for hooking that up. It's like what they do is wrong. They're in a different lane, though, no pun intended, than like Squeeze Benz.
Squeeze is a lot more on the edge.
Yeah,
and they have their hands in different worlds.
What do you think makes those guys though? Because like they, for people out there who haven't seen this video, like they drive at 180 miles, 190 miles an hour,
weaving, swimming. They say
swimming. That's why they're a swim team.
Yes,
in New York City, which objectively is, not just putting their lives in danger, it's putting everyone else around them's lives in danger. Because I don't care how good a driver you are. Someone makes 1 inch of a move that could be a perfectly legal turn and you're coming the wrong way, like everyone's dead.
You see it on their own videos. They are so close to death and destruction, and they pull it off, and then they laugh, and then they keep going. They upload the next video, and it's a little drug. There is something within certain people that are compelled to push it to the absolute edge. There's the Tony Fergusons of the world that had a great career. You have nothing to hang your hat about. But I got to keep fighting. I'm going to keep getting punched in the face. Like there's some people that just can't turn off that inkling or that inclination, I should say, to push it to the edge. The Alex Honolds of the world.
Yeah.
They go out there and that's where they feel most alive and they put themselves in those positions. And a lot of times they win, but it takes one slip, one gust of air, one guy without a turn signal. And whew.
Do you think they can ever turn that off? Do you think because I mean we'll ask like Where's 981? Obviously we'll talk about this with him, but he has talked about, at least with me off camera, about I don't want to do this forever or whatever. But do you believe that?
He's a special case. I think it's the difference of the short-term thinkers versus the long-term thinkers. Where's 981 as a very business-minded guy that already has things mapped out. He knows where he wants to go. He knows where he wants to transfer. But a lot of these guys are day-to-day in the moment. Oh, this is happening tonight? Okay, bet. I'm on it. And I think it comes with age, too. The youngsters are more likely to do this. And it really takes... It takes a wake-up call. Similar to an addict, it takes getting kicked out of your mom's house, sleeping on the street, itching your arm until it gets infected, until you're like, you know what, maybe I should go to recovery. And it's the same kind of thing within pursuits of adrenaline. It takes, I'm the squirrel suit guy, and my foot hit the mountain. Like, you know what, maybe that's my sign that I need to find another hobby. So I think with a lot of people, especially when they're young, because when you have that momentum going as a young man, where you keep winning and winning, and then with you add the social media, there's people all over the country, the world being like, you're the man, you're like, you're Evel Knievel, you're the 2024 Evel Knievel. There's a certain like pride and purpose that comes with that. So how do you shut that off?
It's the infinite loop. I don't know that's kind of the idea. That's what I want to get at with him. And you might be right. He could be a special case because he does have thoughts about things well beyond driving. But like a lot of these guys, like that's what they know. It's not like they went to Harvard and.
But it's not that they're stupid either.
No,
it's just
no.
This is what they're obsessed with. This
Yes.
is what they want to shred on that guitar, and the guitar happens to be a car going 180 miles an hour.
Yeah, I thought that. Can we go to the part? I just saw it popping up there on the screen, Alessi, and we'll have to turn around Keegan's mic for a minute when we do this. Yeah, go back to like 3 minutes when Tommy starts talking with the people in the airport. Yeah, right in there. I want to get this because I thought this was really good. You were just chatting with people, I guess, in LaGuardia, right there. All right, we got it on. Can we turn the mic towards the?
What's your reaction on that?
I believe it. I just feel like it's really selfish. I feel like he should get his license taken away for some period of time and probably have to go through safe driving classes, maybe talk to people who are victims of people that drive like him.
I think it should be commensurate with like attempted manslaughter or something like. I mean, that's in effect you're putting people at risk intentionally when you go a certain speed over the speed limit.
If you were his mother or father, what would you tell him?
That he's a selfish idiot. One of these days, somebody is gonna get in his way, and that person's gonna end up dead, or many people are gonna end up dead. And if he ends up dead, that's his consequence for what he does. But nobody else deserves to have that kind of risk. It's no different than someone who's really drunk getting behind the wheel of a car and driving when they have no control. I mean, your car is actually like a weapon of mass destruction. It has to be handled with care.
Worse than being drunk and getting behind the wheel because you're actively making the choice to put other people's lives at risk.
The steepest price that gets paid is not the person driving the car.
A wise family. They're a good family. You can tell they read and they're
hundreds of people's lives. Like if a kid in a school were to die, everybody in the school would be mourning for that one person.
Oh yeah, he's tripping. Not safe at all.
If he hit somebody, do you think it should be manslaughter or the first degree?
I say manslaughter because you know what you're doing. Like you're just driving crazy. Like
What would you tell him if you could say something to him?
I'd be like, slow down.
What do you think about driving like this?
Oh, it's terrible. I don't like it.
Like, you better stay away from him.
Yeah.
that guy's a
What should be
cop.
the penalty?
Yeah.
Boston cop.
Manslaughter or first degree? That's another debate.
If he hits somebody, you mean if he kills somebody? It's vehicular manslaughter.
This guy has the ability to get away from multiple police vehicles and
That's
including
squeeze.
helicopters.
Right.
So he hasn't been caught. Yesterday, he got away from a helicopter.
Where? In New York or California?
New York.
Wow. What kind of car is he renting?
Lamborghini.
I can see how
He's like, wow,
I can see
respect.
for him hitting the telephone pole. Turn yourself in, brother. You're a reckless driver and you're gonna hurt innocent people.
All right, that's good right there. That was really good. Those were really, really good questions you were asking there, man. Because, like, I do look at it really similar to drunk driving, and I think it was one of the daughters there, if I remember correctly. I think I agree. Like, at least, I shouldn't say at least, but like when you're drunk, you're not in a sober mind to make a good decision, so it's easier to make a fucking terrible decision. But like these guys are soberly like, yeah, I'm just gonna go out there and drive, and they haven't. It's like you haven't. You asked Squeeze Benz this too. He was talking about like driving by, a fucking playground or something. And you're like, oh yeah, driving by a playground. And he's like, oh, it's fine. And you're like, until it's not. I remember that, and he had no answer for that.
Another thing I think we can point out is okay, these guys are putting people at risk on the road, but let's just say you're the guy that climbs Mount Everest. You're the guy that does the squirrel jumping or the base jumping off of a bridge. Even though you're not hurting anyone, you're willing to do a hobby over what your mom thinks, your aunt, your whole family. And so again, like theirs is the most extreme maybe version of this, but anyone that does high risk stuff, even us to a degree, when we were ready to go to Afghanistan, all of our families were like, "Are you guys kidding me?"
You were going to Afghanistan
Last November, we had the flights booked the night before. Just the U.S. and Iran started bombing each other. I was like, that was probably not the most strategic location to be
Let's
stuck
not be in that
in
part
World
of the
War
world.
III. Yeah, but at the same time, especially young men, they take this risk and they're willing to make their family uncomfortable in pursuit of what they feel like they're bred to do, like what that mom said.
But the difference is they're doing something that has nothing more than dopamine for themselves, whereas in your guy's case, you're there to cover a story and report on
It's
something.
degrees.
There's degrees.
It's
to
degrees.
it. Absolutely. Now, what were you doing specifically? What were you trying to do in Afghanistan?
We wanted to interview the Taliban, which, by the way, I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. Afghanistan is actually becoming a tourist destination right now. There are solo travelers from the Netherlands, from Germany, from all over backpacking through Afghanistan right now. Women, men. It's shocking, but that's actually one of their primary income sources right now is tourism. And so it's a lot of people have done it. We would have been just fine, but it is one of those places that if you get stuck there, unless you're really willing to foot a $5 to $10 million mercenary team bill, which we're not at that level. Give us a few years, maybe 20. I don't know. Hopefully we'll be there that we can get rescued by mercenaries when we go. But we did back out. And I think, especially as the channel grows, it becomes harder to do sketchy international stuff because there's just more of a target.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with someone that's living off of $1 a day and they just see your subscriber count, they're going to assume this guy is like a heist at a bank. Like you just... Paycheck.
Yeah, what can we Google this, Alessi? I feel like I remember this when after Afghanistan fell, there was a YouTuber who was taken hostage there, right?
Lord Miles.
Yeah. So this is real.
Lord Miles made friends while in captivity. He basically was on house arrest with Taliban leadership, and now he's there. Apparently, he's trying to start mining in there and do business operations.
Wait, he's still there?
He goes back there. He's been back 3 or 4 times, and apparently he's pals with the Taliban. I read his book, actually. He wrote a book about it. It was pretty funny, pretty cheeky. He's a British bloke that is kind of like the quintessential old age traveler from England, where it's like you can go into a war zone as long as you have a cup of tea, you'll find your way through it. Like a very adventurous spirit of, I'll figure it out as it happens.
We got to get this guy in here.
Yeah, Lord Miles would
That's
be
crazy.
a great guest for you.
We did have Safi Ralph in here, who he's a gangster, bro. He's Afghani and lived there and in Pakistan throughout his whole childhood, was able to come here when he was like maybe 15, 16, ended up joining the military, got roped in with the special forces because he spoke like 10 languages or something.
Jeez.
So he's going with them on missions. And then he got into a really good school. Maybe it was Georgetown, like one of the big ones, like was able to leave the military, and then Afghanistan falls. So he opens up a foundation and immediately starts going to all his intel and special forces contacts and starts rescuing people. He had like a multi-country rescue operation out of there. Goes to Afghanistan. He's obviously Afghan and everything. Gets taken hostage by the Taliban for like 3 months or something like that. Eventually, the White House negotiated.
Donald Trump made a tremendous deal.
No. It was Biden at the time.
Okay.
But like, I forget. He explained in the episode, but like, they had to give up more, and they tried to do it to like save face, so it took longer. It was like kind of a mess, but they got him out, and now he's still like getting people out of Afghanistan.
How poorly was he treated in captivity?
Not great. Not great.
It wasn't like the Marriott or anything?
No, because he was an Afghan, and they didn't fuck with that. They're like, oh, you're here to get people out. Like, and you're supposed to be one of us. You should be loyal to us. So he tried to go on a hunger strike a few times. Like the whole, yeah. Was his brother in there with him? Do you remember that? God, it's been a while. That was episode 142, but...
Apparently the Taliban has gotten more moderate, which for the Taliban, doesn't mean a lot. Like, I still saw a video of, like, a lady in some village getting flogged because she got caught listening to music. And this is another example. We were talking earlier about how people will take one passage of scripture and then completely make ridiculous rules about it. Apparently, Muhammad had a scene where he was walking through a town and someone was playing the flute poorly, and he put his fingers in his ears, and they're like, oh, that means... no music. So that's how we got to that point.
That's the genesis of the no music thing.
I double dog dare you to bring the flute to Afghanistan and try your luck.
Maybe that's your next video. I played a flute in Afghanistan.
Probably do pretty well.
That's the saddest part. But you guys are, we've talked about this offline a little bit with what you're trying to do long term here with the channel. Obviously, like, it's taken off doing very off the beaten path stories, but in the process, you've become, and the whole team, you guys have all become some of the better journalists like in the world, because, and also, obviously, you're not wearing a shirt right now, but mainstream media journalism has obviously gone to the wayside. So there's a huge opening there, and I think people really value the fact that you bring a level of entertainment while actually just showing people, boom, this is what's happening on the ground. And so while it's been more like, say, inner city stories or things that are domestic,
Guys, if you're still watching this video and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please take 2 seconds and go hit it right now. Thank you.
You just mentioned the Afghanistan one. I know we've talked about some other ones you want to do internationally. Like, are you starting to think more about broader stories that may have more, not even just geopolitical implications, but things that aren't just dark side of, like, underserved communities in America?
Yeah, like we got a few in the chamber, like the day in the life of a real estate billionaire, day in the life of a Navy SEAL with Eddie Gallagher. We basically want it to be where from pimp to president, from Harvard professor to crack seller, that we get into your life and we see what it's like.
Sound like the vision over there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, we want to step away from that. We won't always want to do hoods, but
less and less.
And then also changing the hood videos. So say we would do the Houston Crips and it'd only be with one crew. Now we want to mix it with a few different crews.
What do you mean by that?
So say we just went to Miami 2 weeks ago. So we did 3 different crews. So we'll mix and weave them. So then it's just kind of stretched out more.
Right, okay.
Rather than...
And it gives more time for character development. You see different hoods, what they look like. You can show more love to a city. Like, it was really fun. This Boston trip, there was so much love in there. Like, we went to this Jamaican hood and it's 50 deep. We go to what was the other place we were? Oh, Cambridge.
Cape Verdean.
So Cambridge,
like where
MIT and Harvard is.
Yeah.
We were rolling 40 deep through the streets, dude, and all the people were like there was people. We eventually went into a McDonald's and like super big dudes with bling on, and you could just tell like. Some people would walk into the McDonald's and like want to turn around, walk out, and they're like, no, it's okay. You can still come in here. But it felt like, okay, we could probably take the town. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we could probably become mayor tomorrow.
Right. And 3 years ago, you were making prank videos.
Which I would love to do a scripted series or a hidden camera series, like an Eric Andre-esque feel. Because I like making people laugh. I like doing funny shit. I like when we can just, like when we're talking about funny stuff from the day where we're just howling in the car and laughing uncontrollably. Those are some of my favorite moments. Yeah. So eventually I think I would like to do some I like the bizarre hidden camera angle too. So maybe we'll branch off there one day.
When you say like bizarre hidden cam angle, like just strictly like from a prank perspective, or also roping in specific stories similar to what you do now?
More so from a prank perspective. Like, have you ever seen the show Scare Tactics? Old show. So they basically, like, some friend would I'd get my friend, I'd be in on it and be like, okay, you're going to get this job as a janitor. And then meanwhile, like, somehow they convince him that there's there's people in werewolf suits walking around and they think they're, like, going to die, you know? Like, just putting people in wild situations and letting the panic unfold.
God, how do you keep straight all this in your head? You have so many ideas at all times. Like, you have so many tributaries you want to go into. How do you, like, plot that out?
I'm a tangent thinker, so sometimes it is hard. Organization is probably one of my weaker points, but I've gotten better at it as I've gotten older. But a lot of it is geographical. So I know, okay, Dallas. Okay, so we've got animal smuggling. We got death row unit. We got rapper. So I'll have 3 or 4 major ideas for a spot, and then I'm like, okay, I got to... Guys, let's go. Let's look at, Keegan will be sending me all this stuff. What else is out there that we could cover? And so maybe we need a 5th story. We figure it out. We find out what it's going to be, or we make sure we find contacts. Like, hey, who sells tigers or leopards in the Dallas area? And maybe we get a few emails. Maybe we don't.
I saw that one when you put that out. That was funny. That's like you're trying.
That kid actually just called me right before the show started, so I've got to follow up with him. He went MIA, so I'm like, we're not going to see any tigers on this trip, but maybe we still will.
Yeah, I mean, and some of these, I'd ask you about this, I think offline last time. I don't know if we did this on camera, but like, you know, you got to be getting in the middle of things that obviously have active federal investigations on them. And you are a journalist, no?
Yeah.
So you don't really, that's respected.
I don't ask questions that would contribute to a federal investigation.
Well, how do you know you're not asking questions that would contribute?
Because, like, let's just say go to a very dangerous hood that might have pending cases. I'm not saying, so I heard a few bodies were caught here. Who was that? You? Like, I don't say anything like that. It's more so, how are you living? What are your dreams? What's the culture like here? What's the flavor? I think we also know how to edit things really well. Where it's like, okay, you know, he showed his sweatshirt came up a little bit. He showed his tattoo here. Let's throw a blur on that. So we're very protective of the people that we're filming with. And the majority of the time when it's something sketchy, we send them a copy so that they can watch through it and make sure that we covered them. So then it's like almost we get a sign off from the dealer, from the pimp, whoever it is, and then we're good to go.
But you guys are still doing like one of these a week, and they're like 30 to 40 minutes a lot of the
How's
time.
that going, Miguel?
It's a hustle, man, but I love it. So
You still love it?
yeah, I love it. I enjoy it.
You don't burn out from it?
Yeah, but you just have to. I don't know. It sounds ridiculous, but you just don't. You say, "Hey, I'm not burnt out," and keep going, even if you're burnt out.
We're trying to figure out a way that Miguel can get some air to breathe, because like he is an incredibly hard worker.
He's an animal.
He's always at it. He's an animal. Like, we're driving between shoots, he's editing. We're on the airplane, he's editing. But we also know that, like, there's a feeling of like, if you jump off the treadmill, like, you're afraid you're going to lose something.
Yes.
But also breathing, taking a break, getting inspiration. That's when you can regroup and make even better stuff. And so we want to just be at peace with, okay, maybe we're going to go 2 or 3 weeks without posting, and knowing that we're going to come back with some slappers, so we're going to be just fine.
But also, you can't really, it's a creative endeavor. People can't replicate what you do. Like, you've created such a, you know, no offense to your old edits. Your old edits were great that you were doing yourself.
Nothing compared to what's
holy
happening
shit,
now.
Man. I mean, there's such a vibe immediately when you hit a Tommy G video, when you hit a Brandon
feels like
Buckingham
a TV
video.
show.
Yes. But like, there's certain edits that are just, you have, it's hard to explain, but you just have a feeling right away.
He has a signature to his style.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so
I appreciate it.
It's not like you can just plug in someone for a couple weeks and not have that drop off. And I know you guys are on the competitive edge of like, well, we don't want to have that drop off or whatever.
Because it took so many years to break through that there's this, and it's probably comes from a not good emotion to let off the gas. But you almost are like, I'm keeping this ball in the air for as long as I can. I don't assume that this is going to be a 15-year thing, 10-year thing. I want it to be. I think that we're covering very evergreen stories. We don't do what's trending. We don't try and do what everyone else is doing. So I think we're doing stories that someone can watch 5 years from now and still enjoy. But I don't assume that it's going to last that long. So it's like, you're in the algorithm now. If I don't post for 2 weeks, are we still going to be there the next time?
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, I feel you, obviously. And like, I mean, making this product, there's a lot of episodes I do where I feel like it's a snapshot of a moment in time, right? Or it's evergreen if it's something historical or things like that. But you don't know, like, we live by this voracious god of the algorithm that just says, like, 2 weeks you can be on, and fucking then maybe you're turned off forever. But I would like to think that, when classes are being taught 15 years from now, hopefully better than they're being taught now, there's videos like Tommy G videos that are being shown that are showing like, oh, what was America like in the early 2020s and where was shit fucked up, how compared to today, because it's very hard to make things that are both that are entertaining, funny, and educational at the same time, that also find a way to like keep your attention. And you guys have hit that with the topics you're doing. I just feel like the things you're thinking about expanding to, like if there's any hesitation on, are we still going to be able to do that because we're not covering this niche, I wouldn't have that. Like, I think people are going to eat that up. I feel like if you guys went to, I mean, you mentioned the Afghanistan example, but like if you went to like Ukraine or something like that, the front lines, like people would be like, holy shit, Tommy G's in Ukraine, what's happening? Like I don't think, I don't have control over the algorithm, but I would imagine you're going to be okay.
One thing about international trips that I've been thinking a lot about is, now that I have a baby and I have a family that I love, there's almost a feeling of like, I wish I could live a double life where I'm like this bachelor. Like, I want to still marry the same person. I still want to have the same baby. I still want to have the same family. But I wish I could go out and do all these missions and not affect them and then come back. Or do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really sign up to go to the front lines of Ukraine when you have a beautiful baby boy back home that you're like, is this really necessary? You know, some of these things are a single man's game.
How many weeks out of the month? Let's say a standard month is 4.5 weeks. How many weeks out of the month are you guys on the road?
Probably like one, honestly. Just a couple trips to Chicago and then a 5-day, flight somewhere.
We're very efficient. I think we're one of the most efficient crews out there. I mean, if you look at what Vice Media, how long they would take to make a video, even from like the Trump assassination attempt video, which, by the way, thank you so much for hooking that up. All of your connections, Andrew Bustamante, Danny Hall, that was only happening because of you. But that was something that Miguel turned around and Jack turned around in 10 days.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Got
that fast.
And I think like if there's another thing that I think I pride the channel on is how prolific we are. We're doing what an entire company.
Yeah.
We met with this guy, Beef. He ran the kind of, he was production and Noisy when they did their massive documentaries of Chirac and Bompton and all that stuff. He was in that era of just huge hitters in the hip hop world. And he's like, the views you guys do aren't like we'd be in the Vice office in New York. And if we hit those views, we'd all be celebrating. It's like a big company. I'm like, when you put it in perspective, it is wild that it's largely, it's a very small team running and gunning making this happen.
No, it's an underdog thing. I love that.
I love being the underdog.
Yeah, I love it too.
It's way easier to be the underdog than the guy on top. I prefer to be the underdog, to have that chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
It's almost like, because you want to, when you do start getting success, you want to be humble, obviously. I'd rather be the guy in the bracket that, if I'm in a wrestling tournament, like, I'd rather be that dog in the bracket that people underestimate, and like I show up to the mat and I'm pacing, I'm looking at them like I'm letting them know just with my body language that it's about to be, they're going to go through 7 minutes of hell. And
you're the hunter.
Yeah, but now that we're doing good, it's harder to have a little of that underdog chip.
Yeah, but you're still a tight team.
Yeah, of
Vice
course.
Media, I don't know because I wasn't there, but at its peak, like, I mean, would they have hundreds of people? You know what I mean? Like, I also think the internet, even if they didn't know that, like, this is basically the team right here, I think people can pick up on that. Where they're like, oh, wow, these guys are really just out here fucking doing this shit. Whereas when they see a brand, right, you're Tommy G, right? You got Miguel and Keegan with you. There's names to it. But when they see a brand like Vice Media, no disrespect, but they're like, oh, that's a corporate, that's company, right? So, of course,
and
they
you see
have
on
all
one
kinds of
episode,
resources.
like 6 producers, 5
Right.
this, 7 that,
Right, it's less bootstrap. Were you doing something with Vice, by the way?
You know what? I'm debating that because I see a lot of utility in it. We want to. So yes, there's 2 things I'm considering with Vice. One of them I'll talk about, which is kind of being a correspondent on their channel. But now that I thought more about it, I want to I might be a character. What I want to do is bring them to Milwaukee. I want to have another opportunity to give Milwaukee shine. So I want to bring them to all the people in Milwaukee and show the low end culture. The kind of the low end is from like 7th and maybe Burleigh to 27th, and that's where 53206 is where it's all goes down. 6 out of 10 guys walking around have been incarcerated. It's wild. I used to own a duplex there that got drive-by shootings on it. Like, it is just, it's a place where things go down. I thought the opportunity with Vice would be this: we get to see how they work. Our guys get to study their guys, but then part of it is like you're teaming up with the enemy, so to speak. But then also I looked up to Vice. I still, I mean, in some of their pieces I still do. Like, they were the absolute shit for a long time. So we're still debating it. But to me, if Milwaukee can get more shine and we can learn something good, and I'm a collaborative guy. I'm not a guy that really wants to close my doors. But I mean, have you guys had any second thoughts about whether it's a good idea to do anything with Vice?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, like, if we're running with it and we're getting good engagement, like, not to say we shouldn't collaborate, but it's almost like, why not just double down on what we're doing rather than like trying to like web out and, be everywhere at once with, all these different platforms. Like, we wouldn't do a piece with Fox News. We wouldn't do a piece with CNN. So it's almost like, why would we do a piece with Vice?
Yeah, it's like, have you gotten yourself to the point where you're successful enough that the opportunities that you used to look at as the meat you wanted to go after, now suddenly you're like, oh, I'll take it.
Oh yeah,
It's it's an awkward place to be. No.
Yeah, like we were talking the other day about like the rappers that 2 years ago when we were getting ready to drive to St. Louis to do the first most dangerous city interview, where Tom and I were talking about those rappers in the car, where we're like, oh, if we could ever work with so and so or so and so, and now we're like, wow, we've worked with at that level or above, and it's just a trip, that it was 2 years ago that we were having those conversations.
Yeah, I try to keep that stuff in perspective. Like, you walked in today, I've been working all day. I was in a terrible mood when you walked in, then you guys upped my mood. But like, today is 4 years to the day since I launched this publicly. I was building it for 6 months before that. And like, when I got in the shower tonight and was thinking about that for a second and calming my mind, it's like, yes, there's a lot of problems I'm facing right now. There's a lot of things where like money is tight as fuck. You guys understand exactly what I mean by that. But same thing you're saying, Keegan. It's like, consider the things that you were like dreaming to do. Like, oh, it'd be amazing if that happened 2 or 3 years ago. That now some of those things technically happened a year ago. And I'll be honest, like, and this is probably a knock on my perspective, like, I don't have enough of an appreciation for that.
If you would have told yourself 5 years that you would have Delta Force operators, CIA agents, Navy SEALs, ex-Scientologists in a room coming to speak to you because you've built such a great platform, you'd be like, oh, I have the best job in the world. I'm never going to be upset again. I'm going to be in paradise. But with running a business, there are these pressures that are always mounting and they're always adapting. But you wouldn't have it any other way. And let's just say this. If both of our channels got nuked tonight and this is all we ever did, it has still been an unbelievable journey that the crazy thing is, like, in a span of a couple years, and for you 4 years, like, we have lived to do things that it's been an entire bucket list. Yeah. Things that most people don't do in 100 years. We've done in 2 years, and we're getting invited. A guy invited us to his crack house. And we use our t-shirts.
That's the peak, bro.
That's the pinnacle. But I always thought a lot about this, and when I was younger in college, was I want to be an old man on his gurney, family around me, and I want to be able to just tell him stories of like what grandpa did and feel like I went after it and feel like no regrets, not even a letter. You know what I mean?
Not even one letter.
And I felt the same way with wrestling. I was very close to becoming a national champion both my junior and senior year, but I hit the blood round. I was one away from All-American, and I didn't make it. But I worked so hard, all the extra workouts, all the times pushing cars, all the times going up hills, all the times just battling in the room, that I could walk away like that. It doesn't haunt me at all. I did everything I possibly could, and I left it all out there on the mat. And I feel like that's what we're doing here is like, win, lose, or draw, whatever happens next year, like, we're leaving it out there and we're going down swinging. And I think that's how we should frame ourselves on this journey is, and for the people back home working on that pursuit, all there ever is the pursuit. No number will ever make you happy. Oh, when I hit $1 million, 1 million subscribers, 1 million views, no number will ever fulfill.
But do you think that you can get to a point where you don't, like, speaking from my end, it's always like, am I going to disappear tomorrow? And when that happens, by the way, I don't have anything to show for it because I've spent all the money that I make.
And your first and last name is on the channel, so it's going to be hard for you to get a job.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, but you're in a different situation because, like, frankly, like, you made a lot more money than me. You're farther along in size.
Milwaukee real estate's a lot cheaper to acquire.
Milwaukee real estate's a lot cheaper to acquire. Yeah. Like you've actually diversified as well. So, like, yes, you're not ever satisfied with, oh, we're at 2 million. Fuck, I want to be at 3. And 2 years ago, you would have been like, 2 million, bro. But there's still a point where it's like, when you cross it, I know in my head, it's like, if I knew I had X room to deal with financially, which isn't a crazy number or whatever, I'd be all right. Yes. Would I be satisfied ever with my subscriber number or like where I'm at? No, because I'm a competitive son of a bitch. That's always going to be a rat race. But like having that, I hate the word, but like some form of financial stability, that is a little bit
That's
of
huge.
Yeah.
I think you look at it both ways. Like sometimes with rappers, you love their music as they're coming up because that's when they're the hungriest. That's when they're starving. Like, and you can feel that in their song. And then they get to the top, and then they're still rapping about the stuff they were doing 9 years ago, but it doesn't hit the same because they're not doing it anymore. I think, but I also think on the flip side, I think getting to a certain level of FU money where no matter what, I'm going to have enough real estate, enough this, enough that I don't even have to make money. I can just do it for the pursuit. I think there will be a freedom in that as well. And also we want to get more creative with, there's a lot more outlets we want to take. I want to be brief about some of these details, but we're very much considering launching another media brand that, that could scale and that could grow and that it could be more creative. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of things on the checklist. I guess let me. I don't want to rant here, so let me ask you guys. Like,
Ran away. That's why you're here.
Let's talk about some of the things. Like, what are some bucket lists for the channel? What are some things that, when everything's said and done, and we hang up the cleats, what are some things that you think we want to have hit?
Get a feature film on Netflix or HBO Max or
certainly
Hulu,
directed by you,
Miguel,
and interviewing the cartel.
In America or Mexico?
Mexico.
Oh, no, ay caramba.
Adios.
I feel like we could probably make that happen for you guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah, because now let's talk after. Because now, like, we're at least connected to people who are connected to the people.
We have some vague connections as well, but let me just say, like, that's one subject. Me and my wife love going to Mexico. That's one of her happy spots. Going on the beach. I'm not going to say where in case the cartel is listening, you know. But I don't want to put that video out and wonder if our Airbnb is going to get raided. I'm going to be chopped to bits in front of my wife. Or they're going to, like, you don't even want to imagine the possibilities. That is a subject that is so scary. Like, I'll admit it, cartel guys, I'm scared of you. Like, I am. Can I cover you? I think if you got to the top of the cartel, it would be a much different story than, like, the lower ranking guys.
Yes.
Like if you like the professionals, the multi-millionaires, it's probably gonna be fun. Like they'll hook you up. Like at one point we were talking, I don't want to say the name again, but we were talking to the craziest cartel on the map. But they said their qualifications for filming with us was they would send a man to each one of our houses to check it out. Not inside.
A
Sicario. They wanted to send us 90 days of a
Your
credit
parents
report.
are sitting on the fucking front porch like, Keegan.
It was when I got that information, even though we never went further with it, I started like getting paranoid. Like I started looking at cars and be like, who's in this car? Who, like, is that the feds? Is that so that level of stress, Miguel, I will say, we'll probably find a way to make it happen, but that one scares the crap out of me. But also, that's what we're here for. It's the ones that scare the shit out of you that you should do, and not just from like a crash out dummy perspective, but even like one thing I want to start launching is I want to speak to journalism schools, marketing schools. I want to go to colleges and I want to give speeches there, and public speaking is a whole nother ball game to master and to be afraid of, and it's kind of like signing up for a cage fight. Like I believe,
are you afraid of that?
A cage fight?
No, of fucking public speaking.
This is the thing. If I'm charging a college a pretty good bag to come there, I want to make sure that I deliver. I want to make sure that when they walk out of that, like I over delivered what the speech was. So I just want to make sure I take it seriously and do a really, really good job.
I think you will. I think you'll be all right.
I think with proper preparation, of course. But I think it's those things that scare you. Keegan, what else? What are some things on the bucket list of the channel?
I think just like those like fun, crazy ideas where right now, you know, we're like, oh, we know that might not get some views, and we want to do like, you know, sending, you know, XYZ person to cover, you know, just like a super like wacky topic. Like we were talking about like sending the Boston, you know, that bean shooter guy, sending him to cover a furry convention just because he would be like, you know, this motherfucker has a tail in his ass. What the fuck? Like,
that would never go in Charleston.
I'm going back to the car.
What's the matter with you? You wouldn't park that in your ass. What the hell? But like just being able to do those fun ideas where you're like, you know, like you get done filming, and I feel like all of our best shoots are the ones where we get in the car and we just laugh. Like the Alabama sketchy motel one where we just
had a great time.
Oh, wait, I don't know about this one.
So we
we were where were we driving to? Florida?
Huntsville.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we were going back to maybe Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee.
Huntsville, Alabama.
So
we were looking at Google reviews, which is the worst rated motel in Alabama. And we're like, okay, so we found this like 1.2 star where it was like crackheads break into your room at night and there's mice crawling on me. And so
I couldn't get the roaches out of my ass for weeks.
We had so much fun. So we went to Walmart and we bought tarps. We slept on the tarps. And we bought matching blue sweatsuits, and we didn't think like, because I thought sketchy Alabama, like a bunch of like weird white people. It was mostly brothers. So we wore all blue like we were new Crips in town taking over. And
Hopefully
sure enough,
none of the guys that were in like a blood set where they're getting ready to jump.
We threw up a drone to like we did a surveillance mission. We like went into another.
Miguel's laughing. This is real.
We went to a side street. We threw up the drone, and some guy starts going like throwing up GD or some shit to the drone, and we're like, oh fuck, we might actually get toasted on this one. And sure enough, at like midnight, 1 a.m., like
2 a.m.,
a loud boom just hit the door, and we bought a door jam too. That was part of our preparation at the Walmart, but. We had so much. We were slap happy by that point in the trip too.
Was the Jamaican lady the one who recommended that?
This beautiful Jamaican lady was.
Hey man, you got to stay in this hotel. This motel is awesome.
You guys
man.
are crazy.
You gonna stay there? Like,
we would
tell home to a bunch of roadside gals.
We would show people in Walmart the place we were staying in, and we were just like, okay, yeah, this place is bad. It's a locally known spot.
There's a video. We need to send Keegan to like a Jamaican neighborhood where he can only speak patois the whole time, like fucking Meet Joe Black.
I'll do it.
Lady.
Take out a life insurance policy, Keegan.
I'll double up on it.
After the Afghanistan idea got canceled, my wife's like, okay, like let's get some substantial life insurance for you. Fair enough.
But you think about that though now, because you obviously like you're a great family man. It's great that you set up the schedule, by the way, that if that's legit, that like it's like kind of 1 week out of the month. That's doable. That's not the worst thing I've ever heard.
The demands are getting greater and greater though, because so many ideas are coming in. They're like, oh, like, hey, Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard can have you out in North Carolina on the 20th. And I'm like, oh, I'm just got like. And then next week when we get home, we're doing a ride along with the police, and we're doing.
What are you doing with RFK and Tulsi?
We want to get inside the Trump campaign, and so they would be key characters within that story. And so someone invited us in there. We want to see if it's some, but it's like, okay, maybe Keegan will go, or maybe Keegan and Miguel will go. There's so many good ideas coming in, and it's like I could book every single weekend, or I could book every other week to travel, and I gotta do it at a pace that makes sense.
At this point, obviously you have, how old's your son? Like 9
8 months old, yeah.
Yeah. So it's new. But like, is that a thought on the long term of the danger of what you're doing?
You would think so. I've been asked that a few times, but to me, it's like, this is what I'm called to do. Like my mom's very at peace with what I do because I could see, like, in some level, it could bother her, I'm sure. Or there's probably things she just doesn't want to know about. But she's like, this is what God has called you to do. Like, this is what I believe your purpose is. She's very religious. So it's like, I'm at peace with it. And I think it's, what my alternative is, okay, I'll go back to my cubicle job and I'll hate my life and I'll spend 40 hours a day or 40 hours a week away from the home. Or when I'm home, I'm really home. We can go on 2 walks a day. Oh, we're going on a morning walk, afternoon walk as a family. Like, we love doing those little things together. So I think it's the best of both worlds. But as far as the danger element, this is what we're in the mix for. This is, I'm not going to all of a sudden just cover pillow fights because I had a baby. I'm going to go do what we need to do.
It seems like you're really happy though in your personal life and your professional life at the same time.
Yeah, I can't, like, there are times where I'm like just sitting and tearing up because I've never been miserable in life. I've always been a pretty happy guy. But to have all this stuff lined up, like, I'm also thinking like, okay, like what tragedy is going to come out of left field? Because like, how could it be this good some days? Like loving my wife that much, loving my baby, my dog, my team, like having such a satisfaction, like it does feel almost unbelievable, especially like being not too long ago, being a single, sad, kind of failed salesman
right.
in a cubicle or out in the hood selling payroll. like wondering how. Like I'd be listening to like the early Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan episodes.
You have to be a monster. You gotta be a monster, Tommy G. You gotta get out there and be a monster.
Gotta be a monster.
I was talking to another transvestite and she was not a monster.
But I would, or like Naval Ravikant, that one of those early episodes. So I'd be cleaning. Those felt like life rafts to me. Sometimes I was in this ocean, just how am I gonna get out of this? How am I gonna break the matrix? You know, and it just
You have to break the matrix, Tommy G.
Yes, it didn't feel possible though, because I always felt like there's something greater behind the door, but I didn't know how to get it. But then the Kia Boy video hit, and we've had our foot on the gas ever since. And it's like, I'm not taking it for granted for a minute that this is my job. And we were thinking like, okay, if we started another media enterprise, how many people would line up to do this? Like you get to go cover the coolest shit you can think of and be on the move and have stories to tell. It's almost weird when you're with company or maybe you're visiting, family. You don't want to say too much about how much you love your job, especially if like your uncle is, a software engineer that's been hating it for 10 years. You kind of be like, oh yeah, the travel's rough. Like you gotta.
Yeah. They say the same line over and over every time, every yeah. And I try not to be cynical about that with people because like everyone's got to live with their own thoughts, what makes them tick, what makes them happy. But like, yeah, obviously you guys understand the fun parts are a piece of it, and then there's a lot of it that. It's work. And you were just talking about it, Miguel. Like, obviously, you're grinding, you get burned out, just like that. I feel you 100%. But I do always remind myself, like, yo, I get to talk to really cool people for a living. Like, in my seat right here. You guys get to do the same thing, just in a different way. And it's like, you'll talk to other friends and family, and there's no... They don't ever have that moment of cool. I'm not trying to like write it all off, but they don't have that moment of coolness at their job. Even if some of them that make really good money, and maybe that's the trade-off, But
stability.
Yeah, but I don't. I have always been a little bit, and I don't regret this. A little bit romantic about how I make money. Number one, I have to make money providing value. If it's not providing value, like I don't pay me. Number two, it's got to be involved in something that I like fuck with. That I enjoy. If it's not like that, whatever that gene is, it's like, ooh, go make money. I don't have that,
Yeah, I remember being in a sales job where you have to hit quota and then you can make more money because then it starts multiplying. And I would always like at the beginning of the month be like, this could be my month. I'm gonna sell so many units. I'm gonna be that guy. And then like I could bully myself into doing it sometimes where it's like I'm gonna be cold calling like a total animal. 20% off payroll, but then it would always fizzle out. And always end with me like in a parking lot staring at my steering wheel being like, what the hell?
I've made a grave mistake. I gotta see Tommy G cold calling. We gotta figure out.
I used to have a lot of fun.
Were you nice on the phone?
I was pretty good. When I was in a flow, I was pretty damn good.
I was gonna say. I was on the phone with this guy like 2 weeks ago, and some fucking Jehovah's Witness came to his door. He's like, hey, hold on a minute, man. He goes up to the door and like he has the phone right there, and he's like, he goes up and he's like, hey brother, I love what you're doing, but I'm really busy right now. And I'm sitting there. I'm from Jersey, and like he gets back on. He's like so nice to the guy for 90 seconds. He's like, all right, you have a great day too. And then he gets back on and says, hey, did you hear all that? And I'm like, what the fuck was that? What's that guy off my goddamn doorstep? Come out to Jersey. But somehow, like even with people that would annoy the shit out of me that I'd want to knock out, you're like, hey man, keep doing what you're doing. Like we
need to ask your advice about something that we've encountered on the channel. Okay, so one thing we'll go do a shoot where there's 20 rappers outside, and then sure enough, hey yo, take out your phone, like follow me on Instagram, like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, like I'll try and like brush, no, like take out your phone right now, I just follow me back. How would you deal with that if there's a handful of people every different location you go, like trying to make you do it?
I'm the wrong guy to ask because I've never asked someone to follow me, and I follow everyone for no reason. How many people do I follow? I follow a lot of people on Instagram. Like, I just press the follow, but like, I've never been that guy that like thinks about like, ooh, how many people am I?
It's not about that to me, because I'll easily follow. Like, I don't care if you have 1 follower, 1 million followers. If you're interested and I like what you do, I think like it's gonna bring positivity to the feed. I'll do it. But how many guys that are like, I just made a band today. I just made a band today. Tell your baby mama, I just made a. How many? Like, there would be like 17,000 of those.
I would look at him and say, listen, dude, I don't want to have to mute you, and it is an inevitability that I'm gonna mute you. So I want you to keep doing what you're doing without me. Yeah,
you saying you don't fuck with me on my block?
It's not that I don't fuck with you. It's just I don't fuck with 100 million of you in my feed.
You're gonna tell Walk 'em Down to Menace that you don't fuck with him.
Yeah, you look at. Tell him about some of the names you find. What was the rabbit hole you went on the other day?
Oh, just like seeing like the different like usernames that you're able to find to just find like the biggest threats on the planet. So like if you go to Instagram and you just type in like the word Wacom or Slime 'em, you will find just a lineup. Like, it's just like, walk him down Dre, walk him down Trey. Like, what? Like, everybody is like ready to fucking roll.
If you need to kill someone for $10,000 or less, start finding those names in your feed and just sending some DMs.
That's your lead list to cold call for a hitman.
Sitting there going, content.
There's some good names out there that you're like, how does this guy, when he's like DMing a girl to go on a date or whatever, like the girl's not like, I think I'm frightened to show up.
Good heavens.
Spin the block Tweezy. Like, oh, like what kind of activities are you up to, Tweezy? You know, like
spinning the block.
Oh my God. It just like you also with your personality and who you are and the fact that you're white too, that adds to it. Like the fact that you go into these places and talk with these people like and play them Creed songs and shit. There's just something about that is so magical.
It was surprising that they didn't like Creed. I was really hoping.
Was that Plankton?
Probably. But this, like, you gotta have a disposition to do that. Like, there has to be there's like a button, and I in a totally different way. I'm very New Jersey, obviously. You're not, but like, you're almost like a wild card in a way that people are like, all right, yeah, do you know? And I get that vibe in your videos where people are like, all right, that's just Tommy J. He's gonna do what he's gonna do.
Yeah, like I like the dynamic of asking really heartfelt, serious questions and then being like, what do you think about missionary position? You know, like to a total thug. I think it's good to like keep, and then also like one challenge when you show up to a block is like you'll get a lot of the same stuff. Like, oh, you know what it is? We run shit, blah blah. Like you get to like there's like 9 catchphrases that are like, okay, like once you
Stand
get
on
past
business, run shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But then like if you time it right or you say the right thing or kind of like say something like a grenade that, you know, you ask them something wild or out of pocket, you break it a little bit and then you can go in a little bit deeper. And that's the moments you really look for. Like I was in this white rapper, Millie's, really smooth rapper, really cool. He's co-signed by all these super legit rappers in the game. Dave East, Jadakiss, Fabulous. Like they love this white boy. And he rolls like a president. Like he has 2 black SUVs with the little stars in the ceiling. Like, you know,
stars in the ceiling?
You ever seen that? Rappers like that. It's like little light up stars on the ceiling. Like little light up.
I have that.
So when you...
Yeah.
Anyways... And so he's rolling all presidential and whatnot. And then he starts like, you know, I saw a name on his, I'm like, who's Katrina? He's like, oh, that's my mom. And then he gets into like, you know, I made it all the way here, but the one thing I was missing, I had the cars, I had the women, I had the money, but the one thing I was missing was the affirmation from my mom telling me she was proud of me. And I'm like,
and is she not with us anymore?
No, she is with us and she is proud of him. He did finally. So it was just, but it was just
that's
like
a happy ending.
But it was like
you made that sound like everyone's dead.
But those moments hit you, dude, and that's like, and those are the moments humanity that we're looking. I don't care if we're talking to a fentanyl dealer or anybody. I want to hear about how he feels about his mom. I want to feel about. Yeah. Oh, I want to see a picture of his kid and have him light up when he talks. Like that's where we've reached the level of like, okay, I see where you are, man.
Because at the end of the day, it's the same key human things tie people together. And when you can find that, slice of humanity, even maybe not necessarily that example, but in other ones, like we were talking about earlier, where you wouldn't expect it. It's cool to see that. Mm-hmm. And that's part of that silver lining. Like, at least when I define it that way, that's part of what I'm looking for too, to see if you can see that. And then, you know, maybe some of these guys really do make it out of there and not do it. Like, we keep talking about rappers and everything. I think one of the really unfortunate things that happens in rap so much, as someone who's like, I've loved rap my whole life, is you see guys, they constantly are pulled back into what they were working so fucking hard to make it out of. Mm. You know, like, and without naming names, like we see some of these major dudes worth tens of millions of dollars and they're still hanging out at O Block. You know, to me, that's, and especially like when it ends in violence or something like that, like that's the worst tragedy of all. I mean, I got Tupac on the wall there. You know, not a good way to go out.
One difference, though, is when you make it and you blow up, you don't have all these people around you that are like, oh, I'm coming up with you. Like, you're our opportunity out. You're our ticket out as well.
Right.
So they have, like, this communal responsibility where, like, okay, like, because they have an entourage where, okay, you were kind of the security guy. You were the DJ. And, like, all these guys kind of put their own dreams on hold or some of them are just, like, latch honors. Like, there's a lot of latch honors where rappers have a crew of 6 and maybe 2 of them or 3 of them are really effective and the other guys just pass the blunt. But you still got to pay the hotel bill. You still got to, you know, swipe when the meal comes and he's ordering steaks. It's like, oh, God, like, I need to talk to my accountant. But so I think that's one struggle rappers have is they don't want to betray where they came from and just cut everyone off. And also, to stay interesting, you almost need to retain that image of you want to be able to go back to the block and 40 people are out and you do the music video and it looks legit. You don't want to always be alone in your fancy new Miami condo and just rap.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think people discount when they look at that. It's like there's a loyalty thing in there where guys feel like if they say, all right, I made it out and don't look back, it's like they're leaving everyone behind. But it sucks because, to your point, you do have the hangers on. You have people who they are pulling you down. We've seen it over and over again. I mean, look at fucking Michael Vick. You know, those guys got him into owning dogfighting, and then
at the peak of his career, imagine getting talked into that.
Yeah, you know, and obviously, like, he's his own man. He made a fucking horrible decision, no doubt about that. But you know, I remember, and he would talk about that, like that pool of like, oh, well, I had to hang out with Quanis because like he was there with me when we had nothing. And
now he's barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, I get it, but it fucking.
Sorry, I'm a dad now. I do dad jokes.
That was bad. There was actually when Michael was playing for the Eagles, he was neighbors with my cousin. He lived in my town, and in South Jersey, and so he got dogs eventually. Like, he was allowed to do that and everything. And my one cousin had been, unfortunately, brutally attacked by a dog maybe like 4 or 5 years before. So one time he was walking the dog in the neighborhood, ran like right for her, and she started freaking out. And she's like, "Is your dog nice, or is he like the other one?" And Michael's like, "Nah, he cool." Just walked away. Sorry, I had to tell that one. But I mean, you know, you see it. You see guys get pulled back in, and it becomes an endless cycle. And like, what you guys, forget rappers, forget people to make it. I think the big thing you guys are covering is that when people are given low economic opportunity, they're put into the same places, they're put into the same peer groups when they grow up. We've now seen it in society in America throughout the 20th and 21st century. We've seen now 3 and 4 generational type problems that go on, and you wonder, like, oh, are we just going to get lucky on the 5th? Or do we still have systems in place that are making this inevitable, that like the 5th generation is going to be every bit as big as the 4th? Do you think that's the case?
It takes the guy willing to break the cycle. 2 examples that come to mind from this week is we met this guy Bean Shooter and we met this guy Exit Fame. And both of them were former addicts, and now they're actively giving back to the recovery community. One of them has sober house, the other guy's on the street helping these guys every single day. And I think that's the magic, is against all odds, you have to somehow choose to be that guy that doesn't walk in the same line. And I think the gravity is against them. So the guys that do manage to do it just shows how strong they really are.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you find that in the stories you cover, do you worry about you guys getting pulled into what actions may happen when you're not there because you have relationships with guys and you're making stories that are maybe from their perspective?
Haven't really wanted to sell crack since yesterday.
That's not what I mean. I mean, like, well, the latest example is our buddy Brandon. I mean, I think that's total bullshit, by the way.
Of course. I mean, that guy was a walking hit. He dug up his enemies' graves. He rapped about it in the songs. His name was Mr. Disrespectful or Dr. Disrespectful, something like that. And so, like, guys story. Like that have a timeline. And I think it was just really poor timing. They really do, though. I mean, there's no other end that's going to come to you if you're actively bragging about taking people out. And it was real. I saw there's these two couch potatoes that made it Brandon's problem, like these two commentators, shall we say, academics, and then the guy from the No Jumper show, the big guy. And they try to make Brandon out to be this really bad guy that caused it. And it's hilarious because the guys that said that, academics made his career off of covering the Chirac drama from the safety of a couch, like a little bitch. And Brandon's out there in the field, and Brandon's not pretending to be a Crip or whatever it is. He's not pretending to be anything that he's not. And he had a real relationship with this guy. As flawed and as poorly, the poor choices this guy had made in his life or the enemies he had gained, Brandon had a relationship with him. And so it was really sad to see. The internet's really come out in his favor, though. Like, that's the really cool thing about Brandon Buckingham.
Oh, yeah.
He has a knack for getting himself into some sticky situations, but he always comes out on top. And I think it's a testament to his character because he really does have a really good heart. And
he's awesome.
And then you have these little bleacher players that are
just like Monday morning quarterbacks.
Yeah, and guys that would get laughed off the block. Guys that some of them couldn't even walk on the block. I think they need like a wheelchair to move because their health is in danger. I won't go too much into detail. I just don't like this one guy that makes some content. But I would rather be out in the field than in the bleachers.
Yeah, doing it. And for context, just for people following, you got some of it, but this guy, YBC Duel in Philly, Brandon had made, I think, like 2 videos in the past with him.
And a rap song. It was a little reckless.
Films with him in May, puts out a documentary in August that YBC approved ahead of it going out. 2 hours after it's put out, YBC is tragically gunned down in Philadelphia. Brandon gets blamed for it. People like academics come in and pile on, which was bullshit.
And Flock, I'll just say his name. Like a little bit big boy over there.
Is that No Jumpers guy?
He's a queef, dude. He's a total turd.
He's a queef.
He's a queef.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's I haven't heard that used as a proper.
Well, attach it to his name.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, but the thing about Brandon is, he's like the nicest guy. But if you go at him, bro, it's not an Uzi. I mean, it's a fucking nuclear. Like, I was on the phone with him an hour before he dropped that response video. He's like, you can hear him like pace around the yard, like, yeah, bro, I just gotta do this. It is what it is, you know. Obviously, like, they chose their death here. Now they're gonna get it. Like,
dude, Brandon was
think about this?
He was beefing with a guy on YouTube, and in a diss song he made on him, he said his own address. He's like, "This is where I live." That's how serious this guy is. Brandon Buckingham is a bull in a china shop when it comes to YouTubers that want to beef with him. Like, he's a guy that, honestly, I could see him running up on the 2 commentators that said, and he'll slap. Dude, those guys are little, like, that's the thing that makes me so upset, like, the fighting words these guys say, but they're such little, like, they're turds. That's the best way to describe them. Brandon, I hope he gets both of them at the same time and just does a drive-by slap on them. And I'll watch that video repeatedly.
What was the academic line? Like, because he's like talking so fast and like shaking around because he's like trying to get all this shit out. And he's like, it's like, academics, you bald-faced pussy sitting on your couch. I'm not doing it justice, but like, people got to watch that video. It's fucking hilarious. But like, I mean, I guess you got to. Controversy is not my lane, but I guess you got to respond. Like, when people are making claims like that, you got to do what you got to do.
There's 2 schools of thought. Do you respond and add fuel to the fire? And part of it, like in that circuit, academics, that's exactly what they want, is you to make a response, because then it grows, and the fire happens. But you also want to defend your name, so you want to be quiet. It's a hard line to walk, to know which way to go sometimes.
Yeah.
And just how we said, like, you know, part of the dynamic is I'm kind of a nerdy white guy going into the hood, and that works. There's also then a curse that comes with that, where if anything bad happens, or that you're an appropriator, you're
Right.
responsible, you stirred it up. So I guess every strength has a weakness too.
Yeah, there's always going to be people that are going to find holes to try to create a detraction, if that's even a word. And it is what it is. But like, you know, I think it's different when you have content creators trying to like people with huge platforms trying to label you things. There's an element where you do. I think you have to respond there. Do you have to respond as hard as Brandon? Maybe not.
Hey,
but
I want to
he's
know.
good at it, man.
I want to know who brings security with them when they show up to the block. Does Flacco or Academics bring security with them? I bet they do.
Probably.
Do you think Brandon Buckingham brings security with them?
Nope.
So I don't know. That's who's more of a man. I guess maybe that'll be one of the measuring sticks I'll use.
I think so. But so you were here in the end of March. That's when we last filmed, and I think you put out like one video a week since then. You guys have been killing it. But there were a few in there that were of note. One of them was you were able to embed, I guess, for like 48 hours or something with RFK while he was still a candidate. So first of all, because you wanted to get that when you were here, you didn't have that yet. How did you get that opportunity?
Keegan, I'll let you tell that story.
So we were in Miami. What was that? May of 2023, and we were on a yacht, and we found out that we were interviewing at this like entrepreneur mastermind group, and one of the girlfriends of the guys that was on the yacht she just happened to work at Vice previously, and this is when we were like, oh fuck yeah, like let's find out about Vice, like let's see what she knows, and then made the relationship with her, and we ended up finding out that she was on the RFK campaign, probably a year later or so, or 6 months later. And then, through the channel.
She had to pitch it for a long time for us to get accepted. It was in the air for so long because it's a risk. You don't know what someone's going to do in your campaign. And so we were the only documentary crew given 48-hour access to RFK Jr.
So you lived with him for 48 hours.
I was the little spoon for 48 hours.
We basically
we basically had like
sweet dreams.
Don't take the vaccine. I forgot to tell you about that.
That jab you feel isn't the needle.
Love that guy though. I mean,
he's a great dude.
We got to meet him at just probably each day we'd have 3 or 4 spots we'd meet him. Like he'd go off, like do his interviews, he'd have his security, he'd do his thing, then he'd come back. So we got to lift with him in jeans, which was a bucket list thing. Man is what, 71?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Goes up to the pull-up bar, no warm-up, like 20. Boom.
Wow.
Jeans. Doing it. I'm like, this is the man I want to vote for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a really big portfolio piece as far as, and same thing with the real estate billionaires. Now all of a sudden we're not just interviewing the trappers, but we're interviewing the Harvard professors and the Mark Cubans of the world. I was extremely impressed with him, and I'm really excited about his campaign, and I'm bittersweet about him joining Trump because I've always voted independent. Every single election I vote independent, even if it's the guy that I know is going to get 3% of the vote. But being able to be a fly in the wall and see the hurdles that he had to overcome, I think he was doing like $1 million a month on security by himself.
Mm-hmm.
On his private security.
Because the Biden campaign wouldn't approve his Secret Service detail.
Was he allowed to use campaign funding for that? What's the legality
I believe
there?
so.
Yeah, but then they were also getting super hamstrung with the campaign funding, so they had to do like
they were
these
getting
excursions.
sued left and right by the DNC too. So every single obstacle, so he wanted to put his name on the ballot. We're going to sue you, so you can't do that. Now that he is on the ballot and he wants to remove his name, they're suing him to keep his name on the. It's so crazy that you can use the legal system to just try and back someone into a corner.
Oh,
There's a few stories that we're trying to cover that very rich and powerful organizations are doing bad things, and we want to expose it. But we also know I might be sued into bankruptcy just by putting this piece out. So we're getting insurance in line for that. But it's amazing that if someone doesn't want you to speak about something, all they have to do is have a much bigger budget than you on the law firm, and you're going to be scared into submission because do I want to live in a cardboard box and not tell the story? You know what I mean? It's something that we're going to have to pick our battles with going forward.
I'll take our system over everyone else's. It is the best, but it's still a class system. It's still how much can you pay for the best product, right? So who can afford the best lawyer at the most time to make the most salacious claims and use the many loopholes of the legal system, which some of them have to be there, to be honest with you, to fuck people over. I mean, you and I have mutual friends who have dealt with it, obviously, where people with a bigger wallet just come in and eventually they got to be like, all right, I got to make a financial decision here. That sucks. But I hope it doesn't. I think when you have a platform like you guys have built with enough public support at the size you are now, I hope that will be enough to be able to have public pressure campaigns if things like that were to come up, because I don't want to see you have to turn down stories because you're afraid that, a fucking 4-name law firm from New York City's going to be up your ass for the next 3 years of your life.
What you'd hope is it's the Barbara Streisand effect, where the company that wants to shut you up, all of a sudden you put that out to your people, and then it goes nationwide, and then you're doing the podcast circuit, and everyone's talking about it, and then you get funding for the lawsuit, and that'd be a cool way to march. Like, let the public win. Hey, we're telling a story for the people, by the people, supported by people in the effort, and we're not going to back down to this organization.
What was, without revealing things that were told to you off the record, obviously, or anything like that, like outside of your conversations about the political stances or at some of the actual events you guys went to with RFK, what was he like as a person, like a worldview off camera?
Struck us as like a very genuinely like interested person. Like it seemed like he genuinely wanted to know the people that we were. And I thought that was just very charming and personable.
Yeah.
That, hey, a small running gun camera crew of, dudes who are, less than half his age, and he's given us the time of day to ask us questions.
He's very into nature. When we were going ziplining with him, he was walking around looking under logs to see if a snake would be there so he could catch it with his bare hands. And then he would like whip out his phone. He'd be like, hey, look, this is when I went falcon hunting, or this is when I picked up a rattlesnake 3 weeks ago. He is very much a naturalist. And
how many falcons does he own?
Dude, this is the richest thing I've ever heard in my life. He's like, yeah, you guys want to come falcon hunting with me? I got 100 falcons. I'm thinking, that is insane. That is insane. That's Kennedy. That's East Coast Kennedy money,
But he's out. He lives like out in L.A., right?
I think he's got like he's got a lot of homes. I think so.
That makes sense. But where were you guys with him? Out there?
We were in Denver. So
you were in Denver with
him?
him?
We were covering a campaign event, and then we went zip lining with them, and we covered the rally there. We just flew out to Denver and followed him around for a couple days.
And so you guys were in the documentary also, I think you guys were like talking to people at these rallies, like I guess in this case many people longtime supporters. What outside of the normal, like, all right, we don't like Trump, we don't like Biden, what were some of the key takeaways you had about his constituency?
I think where they got a little weird was he had a very strong anti-vax, it was all like people that had gotten medically injured or kind of connected it that was the result. Like, and it wasn't quite sure that was really what happened, but that was like what they were very confident how something happened. And like when they had their rally, 4 speakers came up, and the first 3, they did was focus on the jab, the vaccine, or different medical things. And I think what was really attractive about his campaign was making America healthy again, fixing our national debt. Like, he's the only candidate that was mentioning in 10 years, all of our money is actually going to go to paying off our interest note.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden that he's with Trump, I feel like he's like, make America healthy again, but he's not talking about the debt. And this is a tangent, but one thing I've noticed that no candidate has talked about in the debates, whatever, you're not allowed to mention Israel. There's a Ukraine war happening, but there's definitely not that we don't talk about the other war. That's weird to me that you're not allowed to talk about that.
It's very strange. And it's also with his, just looking at it from a strategy standpoint, RFK had so many stances in his campaign that were about not endless wars and finding peace around the world, which, again, and I totally support that. I always got to be careful, though, with not going too isolationist, because unfortunately the world is a really fucked up place. I don't like war at all.
Yeah.
It's terrible, just to be clear. But, like, at the same time, I thought some of those ideas were good. Yet, when it came to that one in Gaza, I don't want to say like he was like all about it, but he was much more supportive of that. And you wonder, you know, a lot of people get on Israel for like AIPAC and shit like that and having influence within our politics as a nation or whatever. Couple things there. Number one, yeah, I agree. That's not great. Number two, though, the conversation that people don't seem to be having is looking internally at our system and the fact that we have set it up so that's legal to happen. They're a nation. They're going to look out for their best interests. Now, we don't have a AICAC like American China whatever conference because there's been this agreement between Democrats and Republicans that like China is actually a threat and an enemy. Israel, nation, 9 million people, does shit with us in the Middle East. They've been a friend, right? So it's easier for them to get in there and do that. But the conversation also needs to be like, okay, shit that's a tale as old as time. What about our term limits in Congress? What about all our fucking Congress people getting rich off the job? What about the fact that all these people then are funded by interests that tell them how to vote on issues, including something like AIPAC? What about the fact that something like that is allowed to exist on K Street, the lobbyist, whatever the fuck it is?
We're letting corporations essentially run the government. One of the things he was saying about medical patents and developments is that the organization that's supposed to police it all is also funded by the very companies that they're policing. And then you get into, you know, our own intelligence agencies have suppressed certain stories that have potentially influenced very important outcomes like the election. And we're funding that. So I think like I viewed him as the guy with the fire hose that was just going to fiercely go in and use his lawyer background to actually, because it's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to go after the CIA or I'm going to go after, you know, the NIH or whatever the organization is, but he's actually done it in his career. And I felt like Trump on his first go around, his big thing was drain the swamp, but some people could say he even brought the swamp in just in a Republican flavor. I thought it was interesting to see a guy that was firmly anti-establishment and see what he could do with his term.
Yeah, and then you would wonder how it would be when he got in there. Again, that's a fair question to ask. But like, did you talk with him at the time? Because obviously he was still in his campaign at the time and not endorsing Trump or something. But did you talk with him about like the other candidates, obviously including Trump, and what his thoughts were then?
He was really big on never making a personal attack on a candidate. I'm going to go after them for their policy, but not for who they are as a person.
Love that.
And that alone, that was another reason where like it was just so refreshing to feel like we're getting that the presidential spot is actually presidential, because I think everyone saw the Biden and Trump debate compared to the there's a clip going around comparing it to the Romney-Obama debate.
Oh yeah,
Romney-Obama looked like, you know, upper echelon, well-mannered, sophisticated, polite, reasonable, knew a bunch of different policy about a bunch of different things, where it was like, I'm a better golfer than you. No, you're not. Like, what the hell, dude? Are you kidding me?
He kept his cool the whole night that night, but then the golf thing had him like falling off the stage. Like, come on. I mean, but it's also like we have, as a society, though, we also have to take responsibility for that, because we've created a reality TV incentivized type structure where
you have to be a monster.
But we want to be entertained, you know, and that's the thing. Like, you say what you want about Trump, motherfucker's entertaining as hell.
Yeah,
I mean, he's the most entertaining person I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and like, it's refreshing though that there was a guy who was being at least somewhat taken seriously in the race, if not by the other two parties, obviously, who was trying to get back to being nice. It just cynically is sad that it has ended with him not even being able to make it to the election, because it's like, well, if ever there was going to be an opportunity at a third party getting a rise in this country, put a fucking Kennedy in there, right? Brand name, a dude who also, after a very weird pandemic time, had some opinions that aged pretty well as it relates to the pandemic itself. You know, like, it was a perfect storm of someone being able to make headway, and he's still, you know.
The big what if is, what if they let him to the debate stage for the DNC? how much would have been different? Maybe nothing would have changed, and maybe they would have just shunted him. But it's just amazing to watch the media apparatus in action where we take Kamala from super unpopular to unanimously she's the one, and just a flip of a switch. And to me, I don't even know how much I can judge her just because I don't even know who she is. I wish it was a requirement that she and any other presidential candidate would go on multiple long-form podcasts so that you at least know who it is. She is very much a scripted, kept behind the curtain person. So I really, maybe she is the truth. Like maybe she is that the common man, because that's her messaging right now is, I'm gonna make houses affordable. I'm gonna do this and that. But how are you going to lead the free world, but you are scared to talk unscripted? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree, especially in today's day and age where that's completely available to you. There were a lot of people vying for the Democratic nomination in 2020 who were either went on like Joe Rogan or were asking to go on there, and maybe he didn't let them on. But like, what changed? Like now suddenly, like when Biden took the lead on that, it was like, all right, we're going to keep him away. And now Kamala jumps in, takes Biden's place. All right, we're going to keep her away. Sometimes, like, I don't know if this is like way too much reverse psychology, but I look at it and I'm like, was it almost like, why have 8 years of Trump when you can have 12? Because, like, objectively, like, it's almost, besides Biden, who literally isn't there anymore, who was worse than her to put in there?
But the thing is, the marketing is so good that to a lot of people, she is the viable solution right now.
You think so?
Yeah. Do you see? I mean, she has so much momentum. I think her rallies do seem well attended. The media
she's
coverage.
Megan Thee Stallion playing at her rallies. Like, of course they're well attended.
She's busting people in. Have you heard that?
No.
That's one theory. I don't know if it's true or not. But I know that Nick Shirley was talking about that protesters were busting. So I don't know if her rally members were busting, but that protesters at the DNC were busting. That was like, interesting. Like, who's behind that? But the way, because she has a lot of little highlight reels for her commercials, and like she's shaking hands with the guy with the yellow hat on or a hard hat on, and she's going into a school. She looks like she does look presentable in that short 45-second highlight reel where it's like, oh, maybe she is. I don't know. Maybe she is this person that can do it. But also, I want my leader to be brave enough to talk.
Answer questions and stuff. And you were trying to, like, when Biden was still running, you were reaching out to that campaign and not getting anywhere.
Yeah, we weren't getting anywhere. I think we emailed, like 3 or 4 different people, and that was the interesting thing is just how, like, you would think that as a campaign for either party, like both with Trump and with Biden when he was still running, like just you'd want to make it easy for like a small media platform to get in touch with this person, because you'd want the average Joe who's going to watch the video or listen to the podcast to know who they are intimately as a person. And it is downright near impossible to get to them without just using like a contact form that feels almost like an insurance claim form.
Yeah.
To get where it's just a black box. And it's like, it just, obviously they have to vet and there's security that goes into it. But it was one of those things where you just want to get in front of that person as a small platform. And it was...
It's too risky to just let someone that you don't know be a fly in the wall with 2 cameras for 24 or 48 hours with your campaign. I think that's part of it.
Especially if you have a lot to hide.
Yes. Because the other thing is, if we were bad-intentioned people, you can almost make anyone look bad in a way, and the way you edit it, the way you put together, so I think...
Yeah, Miguel's got all the sauce over there. He's like, I'm going to fuck this race up.
Miguel swings the election with a friggin' zoom effect lens.
Yeah, it's hard. But this latest one, though, that they're talking about doing with you, with RFK and Tulsi, how did that get... You might have said that a little bit ago, but how did that get sourced?
I hit up his right-hand media contact, and she just pitched it, hey, do you guys want to come to this event? To me, there's not enough meat on the bones just to be like, I'm going to a rally with Tulsi and Bobby. I want to get into this whole campaign. I want to cover it up until Election Day or something like that and put it out. I see Trump doing the circuit. Obviously, he has a media contact. We haven't managed to break through that, but I'm feeling like we're as big or bigger than some of the shows that he's getting on. Like, how do we do this?
It's a different. I mean, I saw him do like who's the one golfer, Bryson DeChambeau, like he was like playing golf with him. So that was a little bit of documenting, but it felt like obviously like kind of the same, like they were in a setting just doing something fun. But like most of the stuff he's been doing has been more sit down interview. Has he done anything where it's like someone has behind the scenes access?
Isn't The Wire? Someone's making a documentary about inside the campaign. Tucker Carlson was talking about it on his show on an intro. They're making so someone's got that inside footage, and maybe they're keeping it exclusive. But all I'm frustrated about is there's clearly immediate contact that everyone else is finding but us.
You'll get there. You didn't think last time you're like, I'm trying to make RFK happen. You made it happen a few weeks later. You'll get there. But obviously, you brought up the Trump assassination attempt a little bit ago because you guys did the documentary out there. You guys did an awesome job with that, by the way. Really, really good.
Thank you.
And you turned it around quickly, like you were saying.
Miguel.
Fuck yeah. But what did you... What do you think happened there?
Miguel, you want to take this one?
I believe in the cameraman theory.
Yeah,
cameraman theory.
Did you see that Todd character that was in there? The guy that was roided out and very paranoid?
Yeah.
I'm with Todd on this
You're
one.
with Todd?
His blurry footage.
Are you trolling me right now?
Miguel was the cameraman.
No.
That man was ridiculous, dude. We thought we represented him really well. Like we told him exactly what he wanted to convey.
You stay safe, I'll stay safe. We'll come back in 24.
We even followed his leads. He's like, oh, he brought his equipment to this restaurant. Oh, it's 3 minutes down the road. So he went there, and the waitresses didn't corroborate his story. But he was calling me for a couple of days after that video, being like, "You're gonna get me killed. Like, people are watching my house." I'm like, Todd, with all due respect, if you haven't been killed already, I don't think you're gonna get killed now. And the more people that see it, the safer you are, actually, because now people are gonna wonder where you went.
Yeah.
He didn't really like that reasoning.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
He's probably in his basement just bench pressing right now, just pissed. Just like, I should have never shown that footage.
Dude, your straight face sitting with him. Were you in his basement?
We were in his basement.
Dude, the straight face you were keeping with him was killing me. Because, like, I knew you knew it was bullshit. But you're like, wow, we gotta get it.
It was like, where's the video, though? I was just like, okay, I'm going to hang on until we see the video. But then, of course... when that never arrived, it was like, okay. But he was high on his own supply. Like I definitely think he believed that he had witnessed something that no one else had. Like the way he was talking, like he thought like literally someone was going to snipe us at any moment. And he was super scared about it.
You were there, I think that was like Saturday the 3rd, something like that. Saturday the 3rd, Sunday the 4th is when you were filming of August. So you're 3 weeks out at that point. You guys were able to get right up to where everything was. So was the FBI totally moved out at this point?
They had a couple mall cop type security guys patrolling, but there wasn't anyone serious.
And no one gave you an issue with going anywhere?
The mall cop guy did.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Where was that specifically?
On the grounds right next to the business that the roof was on.
Okay. But you were able to get like right up to where the roof was?
Hypothetically, we could have climbed the roof if we wanted to.
He was about to.
Yeah.
Were you trying to get Danny up there and take a shot?
Danny is a wild man. Thank you for introducing us. Hilarious. He almost missed it. That trip almost ended in disaster because the Secret Service guy got stranded. We had to Uber. We had to send an Uber for 4 hours away, and he came. Danny had extreme diarrhea. He almost considered quitting. So.
And on the way back, Charlie got stranded.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie just got fucked that trip. What was the name of the guy we had to Uber? Zaza?
The guy that picked him up in the Uber was Zaza. I'm like, oh, great. Because he'd been stranded at the airport for like 9 hours because they wouldn't give him his bag. So he was pissed. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you got an Uber pulling up. He's like, who is it? I'm like, Zaza. I was like, I thought it was gonna be the last straw. Like that guy was about to go on a Columbine. If there was even one more thing that went wrong. Shout out Charlie, really cool guy.
Charlie's
I love Charlie.
Charlie Butt.
And you filmed that all pretty much in a day then?
2 days.
Basically. Okay. So it was Andy, Charlie, and Danny. Now, where did you guys do that? There's a part of the video where you guys go into an open field and you line it up whatever the exact distance was and had Danny like shoot a small metal object. Was that like very close to where the actual event was?
Like 15, 20 minutes away.
Okay.
It was just a shooting range or like a farm that they had access to that we were just able to simulate that shot.
Right. And you're not necessarily a shooter, but you were able to even hit it once or twice.
Even me, I was able to hit it.
Right. And then Danny hit it like ping, ping, ping. Literally, he's like, yeah, he's dead. He's gone.
That's a direct hit.
Yeah. So, conclusion, there has to be some sort of sinister shit with that kid making his way up there. And don't let me put words in your mouth, but go ahead.
I mean, he definitely didn't just go do that by himself. I feel like he's groomed or something. I'm kind of a conspiracy.
What kind of grooming are we talking about?
Point to the part on the teddy bear where BlackRock touched you.
But I mean, he definitely didn't just go do it, you know?
But the thing is, the conspiracies that came out, like, I was initially really interested. Who's the Project 2025 people?
Not Turning Point. Heritage Foundation.
Heritage Foundation. They came out with this, like, oh, like his cell phone was pinged by a CIA building. They made it sound so airtight. But then it was the equivalent to, I'm in Milwaukee and people from Milwaukee go to Chicago at least once a year. And if my cell phone pinged like within a few blocks that happened to be, it just was so loose. I didn't find that theory compelling that he was actively meeting with the CIA headquarters. But there were a few inconsistencies that were training at a range with FBI people, works for BlackRock, gets pinged by a cell tower, or gets pinged with some sort of government agent. The total lack of security, like, it's a little bit like 9/11 where you don't know really what happened, but there's enough weird stuff where you're like, come on.
Yeah. It's strange that it's, like 8 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago, whatever it is, and it's like ancient history, and people don't talk about it.
Just like the Epstein files.
It's just pushed it away. And I wonder, though, like, to steelman it from the other side, it might be like, you know, some people genuinely made like the stupidest fucking mistake of all time to the point that like no one would believe that like they were that dumb that the government's like, well, we can't let people know we're that fucking stupid. It could be that. Or it could be like someone, all it takes is one turd in the punch bowl and this long chain of command was like, you know, wouldn't be the worst thing ever.
The thing about conspiracies is the bigger it is, the more potential there are for leaks.
Yep.
And people aren't really good at keeping their mouth shut. So to say, you know, dozens of people were in on it or some well-organized plot. But how did this guy get past the goalie? That's really, like, the net that should have had, like, 6 goalies standing in front of it and it's impossible to score on, this guy made it look easy.
Again, it's exactly what you said. It's too hard for it to be dozens of people or something like that. But yeah, like, do I think there has to be... It not has to be, but do I think there's a high probability that someone in there, you know, wherever they were, doesn't mean they were Secret Service. They could have been you name a fucking place in the government that like doesn't
or an
like
Iranian agent
or exactly foreign agent of some sort. Like I know my buddy Danny Jones had a couple guys he was talking to that I'm not going to cite on here for obvious reasons, but like connected dudes who were trying to say like could be IRGC and had some logic there. I don't know how much I bought that IRGC being Iran, but I mean, I guess it's on the table. You know, you're talking about a former president who's currently running for office. He's got policies that make people cheer and make people hate him, right? Depending on who you are, and that includes people all around the world. So if people think like the guy's going to win, and they don't want that to happen, and they're another government, maybe they take that risk. But if you get caught and you're another government doing that, that's nuclear war type shit. That's my one hold up there where I'm like, if they had done it, they'd have pulled it off.
I don't think Thomas is the guy you send if you're really trying to do the job.
That's the other thing. The kid's a fuck up. It's like he's like a Maturian candidate. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you'd get someone better. Like at least Lee Harvey Oswald
looks like
was
a
like
clown.
Trained.
Like you're expecting a guy that's like in a suit with the earpiece, a trained killer, and you send Thomas.
Right.
The thing is about Ghislaine Maxwell with Epstein files and the CIA director with this is, or Secret Service director with this is, they get their one little scapegoat, and all of a sudden we don't have to have any more answers. Like, okay, she resigned and she went to jail, so none of these more stories we have to dig in anymore to. Like it's done, and I think it's going to probably end the same as Epstein, where we probably don't get the full picture.
Did you talk to RFK about the JFK files?
I think he obviously declassified, but I don't know if we got onto that.
No, we didn't, but maybe we will in North Carolina.
Yeah, ask him about that. Obviously, he wants to declassify all them.
Trump said he would. And
I mean, Trump said he would last time too.
do you think Trump would declassify the Epstein files, seeing as it?
We'll look into it. That's what he says.
You guys seen any of the news where some of the names may have started with a T and ended with a P in the Epstein files?
Yeah, to the tune of like fucking 20 numbers in the black book. Yeah, well aware.
Isn't it nuts to think we might have a guy like the one that the 50-50 shot for president may have been a regular visitor to an island?
So it was tremendous.
So here
they were so underage.
I've never been to the island. I just want to point that out. I spent all my time in Palm Beach.
I've been with many 16-year-olds all around the world, but these 16-year-olds are big fans of mine.
I think about this one a lot because there is a serious blind spot bias in it, and I try to look at everything objectively. I'm sure I come short sometimes, but like with Trump, you know, there were years there where I actually defended him early on because he was the one guy in 2015 on the campaign trail. I don't know if you remember this, but like when Heilman and who's the guy Halperin who got the whatever claim and then had to get fired, whatever. So they used to have this show on Bloomberg and they would like cover the politics and whatever. They both later did the circus documentary show together. If you ever saw that, which was really good. But they're like at some event and they got their Bloomberg like station set up doing their show and like Trump's like walking onto the set or whatever, like coming from the hallway, and he's saying like, oh, this is like August 2015. Like, by the way, if you haven't looked at that Epstein guy, no one wants to talk about him, but he's, you know, that's a whole fucking rabbit hole right there. And so you're like, oh, this guy's getting out in front of it. Then you hear the story that, and this is corroborated, that Epstein was kicked out of Trump's Mar-a-Lago in like, you know, maybe like 04, 05, 06, something like that, for coming on to a 15-year-old towel girl. Now, Trump apparently found out about that and said, off with your head. However, and ignored, I learned this later, an ignored part of history is that the two of them had a disagreement on a property that they both wanted to buy in Palm Beach around the same time. And Jeffrey didn't get it and was pissed, and they had a falling out over that. And then it got turned to, oh, it was really over, like Trump kicked him out because he was, you know, doing stuff with girls. That said, Trump was one of the first guys to go, like, you can see this both ways, to go to Bradley, whatever his name was, the lawyer who represents so many of the victims, and help him in like 08, 09, 10. And like these guys, like the lawyers, speak highly of him, like he was willing to give a shit, whatever. However, they ignore the testimony, like they being people who support Trump, of Maria Farmer, she's been featured in the documentary. She was one of the victims. Her sister Annie was a victim as well. Maria served as the assistant to Jeffrey for, I think, several years in the mid-90s. And one of her jobs was she would be his assistant at his office, which was not in Midtown, not far from Trump Tower. And she testifies. This is the same lady. She's an artist. So if you remember from one of the documentaries, the person that was drawing like the giant reptilian mural, this is her. Okay, so she's not like pro-Clinton or anything. She fucking hates Clinton, right? But she has testified publicly, and no one wants to listen to her, that Trump was coming into that office all the fucking time. And it's hard for me to unhear stuff like that because then I'm like, all right, well, how deep does this go, and what don't we know?
They do have plenty of photos of arm around each other. I mean, it's weird to see. The thing is, in those circles, you hang out, you're at a party, let's get a quick photo. You don't have to make the most out of it. But it's weird when you see, again, too many inconsistencies are lining up that it's like.
He does have the creepiest video with Epstein of any that I've seen.
What is it?
The video in 92 at Mar-a-Lago when Epstein comes in with the Maryland congressman, the former NBA player or whatever. And then it's literally just Trump and Epstein just like looking at shit. It's, I mean, you can make anything look creepy after the fact, considering we now know who Epstein was. But like, you look at that and they seem awfully comfortable, you know? And here's the thing. I've never heard, I don't know when people have talked about like Clinton and Trump, everyone says they're dogs. But there's a difference between being a dog.
Horn dogs?
Yes. There's a difference between being a dog and someone who's, you know, the other thing.
Working with puppies.
Yeah. I could totally see a scenario, though, where if Jeffrey Epstein is someone who serves different intel agencies around the world as an access source, where, I don't know, Trump or Clinton at one point is on maybe the Lolita Express. They go have a sex party with who they believe to be 4 25-year-old chicks, and one of them, with an ID to tell up to a camera, is 17.
And they're compromised.
And all they need, like, there's no context
and that's
here.
a slippery slope from there. If you're in, you might as well enjoy it.
Yeah. And so it's like, and then that's used against them. And another thing, I don't know if you'd be comfortable going there, but like, Robert F. Kennedy, 13 fucking contacts in that black book. 13, including his wife's maid of honor, who happens to be Carrie Cuomo, his ex-wife, who's now unfortunately deceased. Bro, I found my parents' old address book before they had phones. I had all 4 grandparents at the time, and all of them had emails and everything, and I counted up my grandparents and my parents' contacts, home phones, cell phones, and emails. It was the same number as Kennedy and his wife had. 2 people.
Meaning that was the amount of entries they had in the flight log?
No, in the black book of contacts. Numbers and emails.
13 different numbers
and
emails.
It was people fact check me on that. I think it's like page 36 or something of the black book, obviously under the K's, but like it was like 11 to 13, whatever it was. It was a high number of email, and they're redacted, but emails and numbers. And I'm like, again, doesn't mean Robert F. Kennedy's like that.
I feel like they would have grilled him a lot more if he was, because that would have been their easy way to wipe him out of the race. Like, well, he's the guy that did this, and because mainstream. So is it that they didn't push him on it because it's such a big story that they want to hush that even him, which we don't like, we're not going to use that one against him. We'll figure out another way to get him.
Bro, they don't even use it against Trump.
That's how big it is.
That's how big it is. They don't even use it like the number one thing. They don't even use it against him.
How odd that even CNN, like, that would be the death shot.
Uh-huh.
That should be we're wiping him out. We're clearing the way for Biden or Harris. Easy would be here. And then, ooh.
Fucked up world, bro. It gets dark and it gets scary when you think about these circles. And like, we separate them now with like us and the elites and everything. And yeah, like that's fair. But also I wonder how much of it is just like manufactured by us versus then the things that are real, where some of these people at the very least are doing things that are just beyond fucked up. How deep does that go? That's what I struggle with.
That's a side of the world that you almost don't want to spend much time looking into it. Because you can, if it all is real, if there's really, we talk to these guys that rescue kids from trafficking, and they're like, yeah, there's these religious occults and satanic covens that, sacrifice kids. So you almost like, I don't even want to really, I'd rather just keep my head in the sand and like cover something else. I don't even want to know about that world because it's so dark and evil that to acknowledge that it exists, now you have to confront it in some way.
I understand why you feel that way. It's for people who are normal, however you define that, you can't conceive of those types of things. Like there's no, I mean, you guys see dark shit in some of the places you go, obviously. But like when we're talking about people who come from means in these cases, people who have everything, who, got the house with the picket fence, but on the side, they traffic kids. Like,
it's way more twisted. A guy that sells crack to survive because he grew up in a crappy neighborhood and is trying to buy a Nike Tech sweatsuit is a very different story than a cunning, sophisticated, neurotic person that is doing unspeakable things to people in a organized fashion.
100%.
I feel like it's what you were talking about earlier with like they always justify it like, oh yeah, like somebody else would just sell them the crack. Whereas the guys that are doing like the evil shit, like they know what they're doing is evil. Like you can't justify that level of evil.
I think I agree with you, but just to devil's advocate it, do you think all of them actually think it? Like I wonder sometimes, legit, like if Hitler thought he was the good guy.
Oh, he certainly did.
Yeah, I don't feel like.
So do you think some of
there's
these
any way he
people in
couldn't have thought
something
he was the good guy?
But do you think that people in something that's like, because you know how it makes it even worse taboo when it's like abusing kids in that way. Do you think these people can actually twist it in their head to be like, no, this is good, I'm helping them?
Maybe that's what makes it so fucked up, is that they are still justifying it, and like maybe we can like think about for ourselves, like, oh yeah, like I could see where the crack dealer's coming from, but with those guys, it's just you've got to have a fucked up brain to twist your mind into thinking that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't see how you could possibly see yourself in any way as the good guy doing that. There has to be some ability, or not ability, but some subconscious awareness of like, wow, I'm fucked.
Here's one thing I've never understood is, let's just say that you do believe Satan is real. If you believe he is real, why would that ever be the guy that you decide to rally around? Because then you'd admit that God is real too, and so you know that the good is available.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do the satanic stuff. I've never understood why people who believe Satan is real would choose him.
I think that's a great point. Makes, like, how often do you root for the bad guy in the movie?
Some, actually, more often than we'd like to admit. We like the good bad guy, like the Joker, the guy that almost like the Robin Hood mixed with the villain, the anti-hero.
We like watching them, especially like if it's Heath Ledger and who's killing the role. We enjoy every time he comes onto the screen, and we don't necessarily want him to die in the movie because we're enjoying him like in the movie, but we're not. I mean, when I'm watching that, I'm like, all right, Batman, get him. You know what I mean?
99% of guys in the hood, guess what their favorite movie is? Al Capone or Al Pacino, Scarface.
Yeah,
that's a hero. And I think there is some sort of level of, what's another example, a really good example of a villain that's really, like, people build a legend around them and really enjoy them and lift them up. What about just the bank robbers of the Italian mob back in the day? Like the Tommy Machine Gun Kelly.
Is that, but isn't that like a riff off a real name? Machine Gun something? Can we Google that, Alessi?
Who's the Johnny Depp character that robbed the banks?
Oh, fuck, yeah. That was in the early, John Dillinger, right?
We celebrate that guy.
Yeah.
We celebrate the hustler. We celebrate almost like Trump, like the guy that can beat the system at its own game. There is some weird thing where you want to root for that guy.
Here's the difference, though. I think there's a key difference. I'm going to compare God, Satan, Batman, Joker.
Sadistic, evil,
with Scarface.
Mm-hmm.
In Scarface, he's an underdog. He escapes Cuba. He escapes Castro, someone holding him down. He comes to America where he lives the bastardized version of the American dream. And the cops, who we look at as like, the cop needs a criminal needs the cops. The cops are coming after him. There's nothing in and we don't see them. There's nothing in our head that equates the cops with God or with something that's holy or good versus evil as much. Even if it technically is. In our heads, we're not doing that. In Batman, we equate Batman with good. We equate Batman with, not God, but like more of a godly endeavor versus the Joker's, everything's chaos.
He's the all-powerful good.
Yes.
Versus
and then you look at Satan, and it's like Satan has God on the other side. So if you're not just looking at Satan, and you're looking at him as the opposite of God, you have the choice between bad and good. So that's where I agree with you. I don't know how you choose that in that way. And I'm not someone who comes at it from an organized religion perspective. I believe there's a God up there. And whoever that is, I'm humble in the face of that. And I'm going to do as good as I can here on earth and be a good person. I don't know why I would choose devil horns if that exists.
I looked into people that are in the Church of Satan, and most of them are very woke, like kind of LGBT, non-binary. Like it's more of an aesthetic thing. It's not about worshiping the devil. It's about having a counterbalance to the evangelical conservative. So if you're going to get your statue here, we're going to get our statue here. And it's more of a movement. Like I was researching a satanic church where it's like, we're having a bake sale. or we're donating the bake sale money to a dog shelter. So there's like a bunch of really woke people that don't like Christianity that want to balance it out. But then there's a level of Satanism that we're getting into with some of this child stuff and the dark side of the government potentially. Like, if you believe that is real, like, do they think they're going to win in the end? Or do they know that they're doomed, but they're just going to enjoy things in a twisted way as much as they can before they catch their doom?
It's dark as fuck, man.
Speaking of dark as fuck, shout out to Captain Tazariak from earlier today at the Black Israelites. Those guys were really fun. I really like those guys. You know what that guy does? He mixes his coffee with milk. So they won't do interracial marriage, but he will mix it. I saw his coffee. I'm like, are you kidding me, buddy? So interracial.
No,
except
are
for
you kidding me? Massa.
They heavily enjoyed it. And then so he posted me doing push-ups on his Instagram, and people in the comments were like, yeah, he was our whipping boy for that day. Or like, he gonna make a good slave.
Yeah, don't laugh, Miguel. You're okay over here. You're on that side of it. Oh my God! All right, that's a good place to wrap it. I think we've covered the gamut tonight. Jesus Christ! When does the Black Israelites video come out?
4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, all right. I'm looking forward to that one. You got other good stuff on the horizon besides going to a rally?
Real estate billionaire.
Tarek coming up. Any good stuff you haven't filmed yet?
Subway Surfers.
Subway Surfers, and also in Texas, we should be getting into a death row unit and a prison. That would be, if we make it in there. We're also filming with a police organization, East Chicago PD in Indiana. Once we get that, I think those are going to open up. If we can hit the prison one out of the park and hit the cop one out of the park, I think we're going to open up so many doors across the country. So we're excited about that.
It's going to be cool, man. Well, you guys are killing it. Keep doing what you're doing. It's great to see the full team represented here, and keep telling the stories the way they are on the ground. That's what people want to see. So appreciate you guys coming out as always. We'll do this whenever you're in town, and looking forward to doing it again.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Peace.
Right. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. Thank you guys for watching the episode. Before you leave, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. It's a huge help. And also, if you're over on Instagram, be sure to follow the show at Julian Dorey Podcast, or also on my personal page at Julian D. Dorey. Both links are in the description below. Finally, if you'd like to catch up on our latest episodes, use the Julian Dorey Podcast playlist link in the description below. Thank you.